the full-time mage. The extreme lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501, The Hand of Emoting. Being able to keep some camels alive for a few days in the wild is a real feat. Moreover, Chad was so happy now. He was probably the first mid-level mage who was cursed and still survived. Moreover, he was the first undead mid-level mage to enter Medusa's territory. Although he was only responsible for leading the way, it still did not prevent him from going back to brag to his brothers and other mercenaries. The camels walked forward for 10 kilometers, and there were many uneven sand pits in front of them. The land had some arcs, which looked like large white waves, but those uneven sand pits were like inexplicable holes on the land. Some of the sand pits were very large, equivalent to a lake, and some were just dark caves. They were basically the masterpieces of the scorpion demons. When these scorpion demons had nothing to do, they would always destroy the structure of the soil and sand layers, which would often cause slightly heavier creatures to collapse and break their bones after passing through. There were countless small caves under the sand caves. When large creatures struggled under the sand pits, hundreds of small scorpions would climb on them and start to gnaw and eat. It would take less than half a minute for an animal 4 or 5 times the size of a cow to be eaten until only a pile of bones remained. But with Chad and Leohala, 2 indigenous residents, leading the way, the journey was smooth. Now, both they and the people from the European universities were extremely excited. As long as they returned to Cairo, they could continue to graduate with excellence. Emofan and Zaomanan were also very excited. As long as they completed the bounty, they could get hundreds of millions of dollars in income. Although it might not be much, it was already very good. After all, they did almost nothing, just walked around, bought some things, and got such a large income, which was really great. After returning to the city smoothly, everyone separated. Tang Mao and others found a good hotel to stay in. The reward amount has been received. Although the people from the European Academy are a little bit pretentious, he still gave them a chance to survive. After all, they followed him this time, and followed his orders throughout the whole process. Speaking of which, Vanny is also a mentor. If he can open a new door for Mingsu Academy to be an exchange student and learn from each other in the future, it will be good for China. After all, even in the international arena, European Academy is in the front row. At night, in the hall boss, the people from the Egyptian military contacted me and told us that, if we enter the pyramid, it seems that we need a chaos mage, Emofan said weakly, while looking at Tang Mao. To put it bluntly, he just wants Edie to go with him. The strength of the Dimension Head is still very strong. In fact, he didn't want Edie to go with him at first. After all, this is a very dangerous thing. If something unexpected happened, and Edie was injured or something, not to mention what would happen to Bran and his college, even Tang Mao would have to cripple him, right? But there was no way. Edie was very strong, and they just needed a chaos mage. So it was much better for her to go in together than for the Egyptian military to find unreliable people. Edie actually knew that they were going to enter the Egyptian pyramids. This time she came out to experience it, almost just to watch Tang Mao's performance. She naturally did not refuse to take a risk. However, obviously, she had no chance before Tang Mao agreed to all this. Edie looked at Tang Mao, as if she hoped that he would agree. What Edie didn't know was that Tang Mao almost agreed with both hands and feet. After all, the little snake girl hadn't had time to train her after she was brought back just treat it as an experience. Tang Mao looked at Emofan again and said, I'll give you a good thing, so that you can feel a little safe on this trip. Tang Mao said, and took out the hand of emoting that Dean Zio had given him before. Although this thing is quite useful, it can only provide little help to him at present. After all, there are not many people who can block his thunder and hit him back. Even if he relies on the power of his domain, he can withstand it and fight back. Moreover, if he can still be hit back, the help of this silent hand will not be much. After all, it is just a high-level magic weapon. It cannot absorb the thunder twice in a row. Such a useless magic tool is really useless to him. But Emofan is different at this stage. He obviously needs this type of magic weapon. What kind of treasure is this, boss? Zao Manan asked as he looked at the magic weapon that Tang Mao took out. It's called the Hand of Emoting. It can transform other people's elemental magic attacks into the elemental power you want for your use. This is what Dean Zio gave me, Tang Mao said, looking at Emofan, and then said, this thing doesn't have much effect on me, but it is of great help to you. Several people did not refute this. Tang Mao's thunder system has been almost unmatched since he was promoted to the superclass. Emofan did not pretend to be anything. After all, he himself is not that kind of person. After accepting the Hand of Emoting, they waited for the end of the war. And there was also the arrival of a ghost helper. It was because of the accompaniment of Jiao that he took on this job. Otherwise, with the strength of Emofan and others, stepping into the pyramid, wouldn't that be courting death? This time, he knew it long ago. The cooling time of the demon system. Without the demon guarantee, he really didn't dare to break in casually. In fact, what he hoped most was that Tang Mao could follow him, but it happened that Tang Mao and Qifu had fought last time in Bian. If he entered, I'm afraid that the sleeping Qifu would be awakened. Without Zhangkong, even if Tang Mao turned into a demon, he might not be able to withstand Hufu's attack, right? Last time, the two seemed to be evenly matched, but both Tang Mao and Emofan knew very well that Hufu did not use his full strength from the beginning. He was always on guard against the ancient king. And now that Tang Mao has turned into a demon, he is only half a step emperor to the initial emperor. Maybe he can still fight against a primary emperor. But as an equally ancient emperor, Hufu must be at least a middle level emperor, right? There are still different levels among emperors. Of course, the bloodline issue can no longer explain anything in the emperor realm. After reaching this realm, who is not a very strong innate bloodline? Otherwise, how can it reach this level? Chapter 502 Heading to the Sahara Desert. A few days later, they were ready, and Emofan and his party set off when Jiao arrived. There were also a few guys who used to be from the Egyptian government accompanying them. After all, it was their country, and it would be unreasonable for them to do nothing for such a contribution. After sending Emofan and others away, Tang Mao did not stay in Cairo. Instead, he went to the famous Sahara Desert in Africa. At his level, blindly burying his head in hard work is actually not very useful. And the more places that humans cannot enter, the more abundant resources there are. Although superclass mages may not be able to survive in places like the Sahara Desert, but he is not an ordinary superclass mage, and Zhao Yanji has awakened, and Apis has also recovered his strength. Two primary monarchs plus an Apis who can play the power of a great monarch, under the protection of three monarchs. What is there for him not to dare to go? Tang Mao left, as soon as he said he would. After they left, he set off for the Sahara Desert. Buried in the desert, the endless golden gravel stretched from the ice to the end of the sky. If you stand on a relatively high sand dune and look down, you will have a panoramic view of this magnificent golden picture. In addition to feeling the insignificance of human beings, you will be more impressed by the uncanny work of nature. This area is very calm, there is no wind, and there is no dust in the sky. After crossing one sand dune after another, Tang Mao came to the desert circle outside the Sahara, which is relatively close to the Mediterranean Sea. In fact, when he came again, Tang Mao also considered whether to enter it, because he didn't know the strength of the demons here. But one thing he knew very well, this place is like a maze. The desert is actually more difficult to distinguish the direction than the jungle. It is all sand and sand dunes around. The scorching sun in the sky cannot give people any direction guidance, and any footprints made in the desert will be easily covered by the sand brought by the wind. But if he didn't go in, the sandstorm ghost that appeared in the original book might also be an elemental pet. An elemental pet with wind attributes. Moreover, it can mobilize sand and dust, and it cooperates perfectly with his wind system. He came here, in fact, more for this unknown creature. Although it is not certain whether it is really an elemental pet. If the bet is right and it is contracted, then the next demonization, let alone the primary emperor, even Qifu can do nothing. Moreover, the enhancement brought by an elemental pet is really too huge. Snow Girl and Flame Princess have already made him taste the sweetness. even in the state of not demonization, with their assistance, even a medium monarch is not an opponent at all. Of course, now with Apis, even the great monarch is afraid that it will not be enough. Seeing Tang Mao stop, Apis, who was wearing a clean black butterfly skirt, stood there quietly, full of dissatisfaction and said, "You damn bastard, you'd better think clearly, this place is not for anyone to step into." Even her mother, Medusa, the mother of the Snake King, did not dare to come here casually. You know, no matter what demon boss it is, they all have their own territory. Moreover, demons have a strong sense of territory. If she enters here and takes action, she will probably be noticed immediately. Pa Tang Mao heard it, without saying a word, and slapped her hips. "Who are you talking to? Have you been busy on the road these days, and didn't take care of you?" Tang Mao looked at Apis, and had to say that Apis's black fur dance butterfly skirt was really beautiful, contrasting her snow white and transparent skin. Because it was completely black, Apis looked more charming and bright than usual. Her temperament of holiness and charm was really too tempting. You were flirted with again, and Apis wanted to get angry, but when she thought of being pressed against a tree on the way here, Apis lost her temper instantly. "With me here, what are you afraid of? Moreover, with you by my side, even if I die here, I can be a romantic ghost, right?" Tang Mao said disapprovingly. "If you want to die, no one can stop you." "Cancel my contract," Apis said in intolerance. "Or you can let me satisfy my cravings. Maybe I will cancel it for you, if I'm happy." Tang Mao said again. "You lowly man, you are dreaming." Apis cursed in shame and anger. "As long as I live, my dream will come true sooner or later. Stop talking nonsense and hurry up. If you don't leave, you can quench your thirst here." After Tang Mao finished speaking, Apis twisted her hips and walked towards the Sahara maze. The desert maze actually has a more obvious boundary, that is, the golden sand slowly reveals a red color. Once the desert in front of you begins to turn a little red, it means that this is the desert maze. After entering the maze, although the surroundings feel the same, and he seems to have been standing still, he never means to stop. As for Apis, he has been following behind him, and the two are not worried about getting lost. After all, with the telepathy, even if Tang Mao cannot recall him from a distance, he will definitely not lose him. The yellow color of the desert, the endless sand of the desert, the rolling hills of the desert, these are constantly repeated. When you walk through one piece after another, when the surrounding scenery is always these, endless, it is no different from escaping into a dark place, where you can't see your hand in front of you. You will be completely lost, and don't even know whether you are going in circles, or walking in a straight line. I don't know how long I walked. When it got dark, Tang Mao still couldn't get out of this maze. Then he started to build a tent to rest. When entering such a place, the first thing you need is patience. Otherwise, let alone entering the Sahara Desert, I'm afraid you will starve to death in the maze sooner or later. So until now, he is still in that kind of humble mood. He can even tease Apis occasionally. At night, the desert becomes very cold. Apis nestles in Tang Mao's arms unwillingly. "Don't look like a complaining woman. I didn't do anything. Besides, I'm afraid you'll be cold. Then you can let me go back to the contract space," Apis said with some shame and anger. "After all, how dare you cover your hands with your little breasts? How dare you? It's too much. If you don't want to keep warm together, then think of a way to take me out of this maze," Tang Mao said again. Although she looks like a human now, she is a demon in her bloodline after all. Even if she has never been to this place, there should be a way to get out. This is also the main reason why he didn't let her go back to the contract space since she entered. Otherwise, do you think Apis is really for warmth? "I haven't been here, how do I know how to get out of this maze?" Apis snorted and turned to look aside. "You are lying." Originally, he was just trying it out, but after looking at Apis's guilty look, he suddenly felt certain that this little girl might really be able to take him out of the maze and into the Sahara Desert. Speaking of which, there have been battles between demon tribes here, that is to say, they have special ways to not lose themselves in this maze. If no one can really get in and out, then how can there be demons on the periphery? "I don't have it," Apis insisted. Hearing this, Tang Mao pressed her to the ground. the corners of his mouth slightly raised, and he said, "Just tell me whether you will lead the way or not." Apis did not expect that this time Mage could threaten him like this? Question mark. Seeing her indifferent, he did not waste words and took action when it was time. "Okay, I know, I will take you there." Apis never thought that Tangmao was joking with her because he was really greedy for her. Look, the claws are getting more and more presumptuous. If he is not stopped, what will happen? That's better, you little snake girl. Don't blame me for being rude if you play tricks on me in the future. Tangmao said, looking at his little brother, and then looked at Apis randomly. The meaning was very clear. "I have promised to take you into the Sahara Desert. Don't go too far." Although I have experienced it once, I still feel uncomfortable in my throat when I think about it now. So he would never try it a second time. Unfortunately, she was no longer the high and mighty Queen Medusa, but Tangmao's contracted demon. How could she have the right to refuse such a thing? Chapter 503. The demonic tribe attracted by food. The wind at night began to get stronger, and the sand was rolled into the air and then hit over. The small tent could no longer withstand the impact of the strong sand. Apis, who was working hard in the tent, and Tangmao, who was enjoying life, didn't care about it at all. After all, no matter how strong the sand and dust were, it couldn't make any impact in this small tent that was as hot as fire. The night was very bright, and the beautiful outline of the desert could still be seen clearly. The shadows in the tent were constantly moving. Occasionally, a few sand foxes were scared away by Apis's strong resentment before they got close. Although it was not the overlord here, how could she, with her noble bloodline, allow others to see her in this state? After a peaceful night, Apis also led the way obediently. With her leading the way, the originally troubled maze took only half a day to walk out. Of course, this is not outside the Sahara Desert, but inside the Sahara Desert. Looking at the endless yellow sand in front of him, Tangmao did not rush to go, but looked at Apis and said, "Can you feel the big monsters with wind attributes here and there? Do you think I'm a dog?" Apis said unbearably. "Well, if you don't know, then don't know. Why are you so fierce?" Tangmao shrugged. "I'll fight you." Seeing Tangmao's look of crossing the river and destroying the bridge, Apis was almost furious. Okay, I was wrong. Looking at Apis, who was in a state of emotional explosion, Tangmao was the first to admit his defeat. There is no way. The contract has been signed, and the service is good, especially the little fragrant tongue is really memorable. In this case, what's wrong with admitting a mistake? Originally, she felt furious, but looking at Tangmao's mean and rogue look, Apis suddenly became like a deflated ball. The advantage has been taken, and he doesn't force himself to explode. If he doesn't force, Apis will naturally not think too much. But because of this, it means that her days of slavery will last for a long time. But if Apis didn't know where to go, he was really confused. After all, this has always been the territory of demons, and humans have already died again. However, although there was no destination, he did not stop, but walked towards the direction with the reluctant Apis. It seemed to him to be the north now. Of course, he didn't know whether it was the north or not. Anyway, just wander around this maze to see if you can find the creature you want to find, whether it exists or not. The two walked for a day, and except for seeing a few non-aggressive Nubian bastards flying in the sky, they didn't see any other demons. Of course, these Nubian bastards were unlucky, and the moment they were encountered by Tangmao, they had already become a meal on the plate. There was no way, in this endless desert, it was better not to eat his food if he could. Apis looked at Tangmao after he killed the Nubian bastards and said with some regret, "You will probably get into trouble if you attack them casually. Don't you have this common sense? What are you afraid of? They are just a group of Nubian bastards. I'm so stupid." Tangmao hadn't finished speaking when he saw a dense group of Nubian bastards flying towards him from the sky. Moreover, the ones leading the way had brown crests, camel-colored feathers, blue-gray long necks, and light yellow legs. Their bodies were as big as a mountain and extremely strong! Exclamation mark. Just looking at their size, the other party should be a demon at the commander level. The ones he had solved before should be the servant level demons. The ones that were bigger than them were the general level Nubian bastards. The reason why he exclaimed was that he had never thought that killing a few servant level demons would actually attract a demon tribe. How united are they? Without saying a word, Tangmao turned around and ran with apathy. There was no other way. If he took action, he was not sure whether he would attract other demons. The most important thing was that who the hell knew if there were any monarchs in this dense group of Nubian bastards? What's going on? I just killed a few little demons. Do they have two? Tangmao asked Apis in his arms while running wildly. Humph, where do you think this is? This is the Sahara Desert. Because of the maze, almost no human beings have ever stepped into it. Here they only have constant fighting between tribes. And you just took action casually, and you haven't killed them all. As a human, you will naturally arouse their hostility immediately. Apis is a demon after all, and she still knows about demons. Then why don't you remind me? Tangmao complained. I have a chance. Apis gnashed her teeth, and looked at Tangmao and said, people are in my arms, and the pot falls from the sky. Tangmao was embarrassed for a while, as if she had just tried to stop him, but not only did she fail, but she was also beaten by him. That touch is really great. It's so addictive. Pa! Exclamation mark. At this time, he found that he still had the leisure to think about this, which was speechless. Kai. Kai kai. Kai kai kai. He ran very fast, but the flock of birds was chasing him. It seemed that they had a strong revenge mentality and would not stop until they killed them. What was annoying was that Tangmao could not use the wind system to fly at high altitude. After all, the sky has always been the territory of demons. Once they see humans flying, they will immediately launch an attack. He has already offended one tribe, and he doesn't want to provoke another one for no reason. Is there any way to escape from their pursuit? Tangmao asked helplessly. This should be their territory. If you want to avoid them, you can only enter the territory of other demons. Otherwise there is no other way. Apis responded. Do you know where is their territory, and where is the territory of other demons? Tangmao said again. How would I know? Didn't you just say something nonsense? Apis simply shut up and ignored Tangmao. This guy was really annoying. While the two were talking, the Nubian bastard Yaoquan also caught up, and even some general level Nubian bastards had already attacked him. Tangmao dodged very quickly, but the waves of yellow sand still made him feel a little unhappy. When more Nubian bastards began to attack, Tangmao simply stopped running, slowed down and stopped where he was. Then, the fire constellations were spliced together. The moment the four color flames ignited, even Apis was stunned. Chapter 504. Want to make a bet? Although she is not a real human, she has some understanding of spiritual creatures such as spirit seeds and soul seeds. The flames that Tangmao ignited are obviously all soul seeds. Moreover, they are all soul level flames. 4 soul level flames appeared on one person. How terrible damage would it cause? Question mark? Apis could hardly imagine. What shocked her the most was that at the moment, when the 4 flames were ignited, Tangmao's fire system actually produced the power of a superclass magician. Of course, she also knew a lot about Tangmao in the past few days. After all, she had known him twice. So she still knew that there were 2 elemental pets in the contract space besides herself. This was also what Apis didn't understand. They were obviously the proud elemental pets between heaven and earth, so why were they willing to become his contract pets? Moreover, whether it was Snow Girl or Flame Lady, they both looked like they liked Tangmao very much. Sky Flame Funeral 1000 Petal Flame Flower. Tangmao didn't care about Apis at this time, and quickly completed the 3rd level high level fire magic. The sky flame turned into a bunch of fireworks flowers, which burned into a gorgeous sea of fireworks in the sky, and then covered it, densely packed, and rained down meteors. The meteor fire among these 4 soul fires has a special ability. When the flame is flying, it will rub against the air. The friction will expand the entire fire and impact force, so that a small piece of fire petal can also glow with a terrible destructive force. Exclamation mark. Thousands of fire petals fell, comparable to the momentum of meteor showers, frantically bombarding the sky above the monster group. Each petal bloomed a destructive fire lotus on the ground, and in the air. The flame lotuses overlapped, and the terrible power made the temperature of the whole sky rise rapidly. As for the Nubian bastard monster group, in this vast sea of fire, they were roasted one by one, or even melted and fell down. Boom boom at the same time. Tangmyo also described the constellations again, looking at the commander level monsters who were not killed by the sea of fire and came here. Silent thunder death light. Lightning appeared, and the Nubian bastards who had just avoided the sea of fire in the sky were greeted by more terrifying sky thunder. The destructive power of this thunder is not weaker than the damage caused by fire magic, and it is even stronger. Moreover, the most terrifying thing is that once it is touched by this thunder, it will immediately suffer more thunder bombardment. That's right, when the fire magic prevented them from approaching, Tangmyo quickly absorbed the thunder element power nearby. When they gathered together, the thunder domain was fully unfolded. Under the continuous thunder bombardment in Tangmyo's thunder domain, even the commander level Nubian bastards could not stand it at all. After all, this is not a matter of intermediate magic. Moreover, the power of this intermediate magic is completely comparable to the high level magic of soul species. He was never afraid of being beaten up by a group, because his thunder and fire were specially used to treat groups of demons. A large number of Nubian bastards fell from the sky, some were scorched by fire, and some were scorched by thunder. In short, a demon tribe charged, and just one encounter, thousands of them died here, including two commander level demons. ZHA. The remaining Nubian bastard demon group stagnated instantly. There was no way, this was too cruel. If this continued, wouldn't they be in danger of extinction? Although it seemed that Tangmyo's 2 destruction magics killed many of them, a demon tribe could hardly be injured by the death of thousands of them. Looking at the situation above them, and the deafening scream, Tangmyo looked at Apis. She also looked serious, and then said, there are monarch level creatures among them, which should be the level of middle monarchs. Damn, I just came in, and encountered monarch level creatures. No wonder there are tens of thousands of strange birds. It seems that there is no way to leave smoothly today. Just based on the number, Tangmyo actually guessed that there must be a monarch level existence among them. As the flock of birds dispersed, a huge Nubian bastard monarch emerged. The reason why it was not seen before was because there were too many birds in the flock. There were nearly 100,000 of them. Even if a lot of them were killed, it was just the tip of the iceberg. Seeing that the big boss came out, Tangmyo was not ready to fight alone, and immediately shouted, Snow Girl, Yanji, come out to rescue. As his shout fell, the 2 white contract summoning gates opened. The Snow Girl was full of coldness, but in this dry and hot desert, half of the area turned into ice in an instant, and the other half was even more burning. After the 2 girls, one red and one blue, appeared, the Nubian bastard monarch who had just appeared also stopped moving forward. Ring-ying after Yanji and Zunu appeared, they stared at the Nubian bastard monarch at the same time, as if they were going to deal with it. I asked you 2 to come out, to deal with the small monsters. The big one will be left to dad. As he said that, Tangmyo patted Apis and said dissatisfiedly, do you have any sense? Do you still want to watch the show here? Apis was slapped again. Her beautiful eyes were full of dissatisfaction. However, this is indeed not the time to throw a tantrum, and such a group of low-level birds is indeed a bit too arrogant. Are you sure you can deal with that Nubian bastard? However, Apis didn't think that Tangmyo could deal with a medium-sized monarch. Seeing her disdainful look, Tangmyo raised his eyebrows and said, do you want to bet? What bet? Apis asked puzzledly. If I beat it away, you should be more enthusiastic at night. How about that? Why don't you die? Apis's pretty face was cold, as if she was angry. After all, it's already this time, and this bastard still wants this? You dare not? Tangmyo said again. You Apis wanted to say, let's bet. But, this kind of bet is meaningless no matter what, right? If you lose, you have to kneel, and if you win, you don't seem to get anything, right? You dreamed then Apis said again, your bet is unfair. Then bet a little bigger. If I win, let me feel your warmth. If you win, I will let you go. Tangmyo continued. At first, she didn't understand the so-called warmth, but after he made a gesture, Apis understood it instantly. After all, it often appears in the human world, and she still knows some things clearly, especially what Tangmyo did to her. It made her feel that she had not wronged him at all. But, can this be gambled? Question mark? Apathy thought about it and felt that it was indeed possible to gamble. Anyway, just for this rogue's temperament, it was just a matter of time. Now that she saw the opportunity to leave, she would naturally not miss it. Looking at Tang Mao, she said, "What if you lie to me? If I lie to you, let the divine thunder of nature strike me with 5 thunders." Tang Mao said confidently. "Let's not talk about the strength of this middle-level monarch. As long as Yanjian Zunu work hard to defeat its subordinates, how can it still have the mind to continue fighting with itself? It will definitely run away at that time, so it doesn't need to defeat it, just deal with it. He is already in an invincible position, so he is naturally full of confidence." After looking at Tang Mao like this, Apathy said, "Forget it, I won't gamble." Huh. Tang Mao, who was thinking about the happiness tonight, was slightly stunned. Why didn't this number play cards according to the routine? What the hell is not betting? Isn't freedom good? The Yanjian Zunu next to them were looking at their unscrupulous father and the new little sister, their faces full of confusion. After all, didn't the two sisters come out to fight? Why didn't they let them move for so long? Moreover, how could the flock of birds on the opposite side just stand there and watch indifferently? Didn't they know to attack them when they didn't move? Question mark? However, no matter what Tang Mao said, Apis seemed to have suddenly grown a brain and just didn't gamble. Although the Nubian bastard king in the sky was a little afraid of the sudden appearance of the fire elf goddess and the ice elf goddess, so many of his men had died, so it naturally couldn't just leave like that. ZHA. Then, it looked at Yanjian Zunu below and screamed, "Ring, ing." Not knowing what the other party expressed, Yanjian Zunu instantly got angry. Tang Mao looked at Apis puzzled and said, "What did that stupid bad say?" Chapter 505, Nubian Bastard Monarch. It said that these two little guys are obviously the least elves among the demons. How could they obey such a small and shameless human like you? Apis's mouth corners slightly raised, and she smiled charmingly. Pa. Tang Mao felt credible in the front, but the small and shameless in the back was obviously added by this little snake woman herself. "You go, destroy its tribe." Tang Mao ignored Apis directly and randomly ordered Yanjian Zunu. The two girls had already exploded, and as Tang Mao finished speaking, they rushed straight into the sky. However, they were not going for the Nubian Bastard Monarch. It happened that the Nubian Bastard Monarch also screamed strangely when the two elemental elves rushed up, letting its tribe entangle them. It knew very well that it might not be able to deal with the two elemental pets by itself. After all, the flames and ice on them were too strong. So it wanted to capture the thief first. As long as Tang Mao was solved, all problems would be solved. When Yanjian Zunu began to abuse the commander and the second battle generals were shining, the Nubian Bastard King also rushed straight to Tang Mao. Apis looked at the behemoth that was rushing over, and she didn't mean to sit back and watch. There was no way. If Tang Mao died, she would not be able to survive at all. This is the sadness of being enslaved. The air seemed to freeze at this moment, feeling the calm breathing of Apis, with a hint of fragrance, and the Nubian Bastard King who rushed over was also slightly stunned. Apis walked forward step by step, beautiful and holy like a little angel, and then Apis's pupils changed, rotating with a noble golden pink color, which would make people lost at a glance. The Nubian Bastard King stopped before landing. There was no way. It could never have imagined that there was a pure-blooded Medusa beside Tang Mao. ZHA. Shut up, get out of here now, and I'll spare your life. No one knows what the Nubian bastard said to make Apis furious. Facing Apis's golden pink snake pupils, the Nubian bastard was inexplicably panicked. However, after looking at the little demons falling from the sky, it had to bite the bullet, because the current situation was obviously a fight to the death. Not only did this human step into a place he shouldn't have stepped into, but he also killed so many of its little demons. How could it tolerate this? You didn't understand what I just said. I asked you to deal with the little ones, and this big one is mine. Just as the Nubian bastard and Apis were staring at each other, Tang Mao held her soft shoulders and said, "Are you looking for death?" Apis was a little puzzled. Who gave Tang Mao the courage? Tang Mao ignored him. The whirlwind floated under his feet and then soared into the sky. After a burst of lightning, a sledgehammer appeared in his hand. Thor raised his hammer high, and without saying a word, he smashed it towards the Nubian bastard. The Nubian bastard, who was still staring at Apis, obviously didn't expect that Tang Mao would be so decisive. Moreover, judging from the opponent's appearance, he still wanted to fight in close combat. Boom. However, before it could think about it, a hammer directly bombarded its bird's head. The moment the hammer hit, the thunder element on it also became irritable and began to explode. The boom 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 thunder sound made the Nubian bastard's head buzz! Exclamation mark. ZHA. The Nubian bastard took a hammer, but did not land directly, but began to fight back. The bird opened its mouth, and a huge wave of hot water sprayed out directly. The moment the fire wave rushed towards Tang Mao, he hurriedly cast ice magic, and a wall of ice condensed in front of him. Crash. But this furious attack did not diminish, just because it was an ice wall. Moreover, the fire wave rushed forward, causing the ice wall to shatter directly. Fortunately, Tang Mao reacted quickly, knowing that the ice wall could not withstand it, and hurriedly fell to the ground. The fire wave rushed straight into the distance in the sky like a straight line. Seeing Tang Mao hiding on the ground, the Nubian bastard king ignored his bleeding and rushed down. Space wall. Seeing the huge Nubian bastard like a mountain coming straight down, the silver constellation flashed, and then the space wall formed by the invisible thoughts appeared in front of it. Then a violent bang sound came out. After this huge sound, the state of the Nubian bastard king was extremely bad. Gravity. But this was not over. In order to prevent this guy from rushing out, Tang Mao continued to exert pressure. He was not prepared to fight it to the death. But after seeing Apis, who was in a daze next to him, he had the idea of destroying it. Apis, come and control him. Tang Mao shouted. After being stopped from attacking, Apis stood there blankly, watching the scene in front of her, with her hands behind her back, her shoulders round, and her clavicle showing off her delicate upper body perfectly. Her slender waist and long, round legs just outlined a beautiful snake curve, which was amazing. She had to admit that she underestimated Tang Mao's strength. It was rare to cause such damage to a mid-level monarch. She thought she only needed to watch the show quietly, but she was slightly stunned after hearing Tang Mao shout. After all, it was this dog man who didn't let her move, and it was also him who let her move. Did he really treat himself as a pet? He ordered whatever he wanted? Apis looked like she didn't hear it, and she wanted to resist silently. Tang Mao was naturally clear about her thoughts. But doesn't this little bitch choose the time to be willful? That is to say, she is too beautiful. Otherwise, she would have kicked out such a disobedient contract pet. You are playing dumb. After dealing with this stupid bird, I will let you see the power of my Thunderbird. Apis paused, not quite understanding it, but after a careful taste, well, she knew what it was. Shameless. After cursing softly, Apis stared at the Nubian bastard in the sky, and her eyes glowed golden pink again. She began to use her curse and mental power to put pressure on the Nubian bastard. Sure enough, the Nubian bastard, who was originally locked by the powerful space telekinesis, was instantly weakened after being attacked by Apis. Tang Mao, who got a breath, did not withdraw his space power immediately. After all, it was a medium-sized monarch. How could Apis make it confused with just one move? Chirp chirp. Chirp chirp. Just as Tang Mao and Apis worked together to deal with the Nubian bastard monarch, suddenly, tens of thousands of Nubian bastard monsters flew over here from the sky. Obviously, they also saw the disaster of their monarch father, and the battle in the sky was actually just a moth flying into a flame, so they came to rescue their monarch father. Most of the Nubian bastard monsters that rushed over were general level monsters and slave level monsters. Even though there were nearly 10,000 of them, there were no commander level monsters mixed in, so there was nothing to be afraid of. But the bad thing was that they were now exerting control pressure on the Nubian bastard monarch. You control it first, and I'll deal with this group of birds. After saying that, Tang Mao moved to the side of Apis in an instant. Without Qianji in his body, although his fire system had Kingluan fire, it was not enough to cause one-time destructive damage to the nearly 10,000 Nubian bastard monsters. As for the shadow system, it is not very effective against these aerial monsters. As for the ice system, its output is not as strong as the fire system, and there is no need to think about it without the snow girl, so it has to be the thunder system. Thundernet. The star map was formed in one thought, and the electric net soared into the sky. The Nubian bastard monsters wanted to save their monarch father, so they were naturally fearless. However, when the electric net became larger and larger, and they wanted to break through it, they turned into charcoal one by one when they hit it. And anyone who was stained with a trace of electric current would be struck by the thunder of the dark clouds above. Large numbers are very advantageous, but Tangmao has always been the nemesis of group monsters. As the layout of the thundernet became faster and faster, even without the use of thunderstorm, nearly 1,000 little monsters had been dealt with. Chapter 506, Yellow Sand Everywhere, showing desolation. When the power grid was formed, the high-level constellations were instantly spliced together. The deep purple light flashing from the constellations was full of destructive thunder power. Giant thunderstorm. Then the thunder fell. Thick and magnificent thunders fell one after another, and almost at that moment, tens of thousands of Nubian bastards were wrapped in it. After the thunder fell on their bodies, the thundernet below suddenly became irritable, and then the current poured wantonly. The place in the air seemed to form a thundercloud in an instant. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Boom. After the deafening thunder sounded, the monsters in the air began to crash one by one. Those who were not bombed suffered the effect of continuous electricity because they were too close to their companions. The bombing they had to suffer in the field was obviously more tragic than those who had already crashed. Because the concentrated thunderstorm was only a one-time attack, and after the thunderbolt of the field was launched, as long as the opponent had damage from the thunder element, the thunderbolt would fall immediately. How could there be only a little bit of thunder element in such a large area of thunder explosion? One thunderbolt may not shatter it, but how can they resist the thunderbolt that comes next? Again, he was never afraid of being surrounded and beaten by a group of demons. As long as he was given time to perform, even if there were many small demons, after the thundernet was spread all over, or thunderstorm would come down, and he would be embarrassed to say anything if he couldn't kill tens of thousands of demons. Moreover, if tens of thousands of demons gathered, even if there were monarch level demons in it, he couldn't kill them instantly, but it was enough to give them an absolute heavy blow. The power of the thunderbolts gathered together was superimposed, but it was not weaker than his thunder superclass magic damage. Some pseudo-monarchs and the like could be killed directly in seconds. Of course, the premise is that the number must be sufficient, and it is still in their own territory, otherwise, it would be difficult. After Apis glanced at the place where the thunder was, her mouth couldn't help but open wide. She didn't expect that Tangmao's thunder system was so strong. She simply couldn't believe that this was a magic performed by a human being. At the moment, when she was distracted, the Nubian bastard king also seized the opportunity to directly break the constraints of space and spread its wings in the sky again. Chirp chirp. But at this time, it completely lost the contempt it had just shown when chasing Tangmao and the others. Even after seeing that its tribe had lost almost half of its population, it roared. As its roar spread, the little demons began to gather towards it. At this time, Tangmao was no longer paying attention to the crashed planes. He turned his head and looked at the Nubian bastard king who had broken free from control. Apis was panicking. She really didn't let it go on purpose, but it was just too shocking. Seeing that Tangmao didn't say anything, she didn't feel relieved, but felt that something more terrible was going to happen. Snow Girl and Flame Princess waved their hands, and thousands of Nubian bastards were killed in seconds, but the little demons who were still constantly flying into the fire suddenly left. The two elves paused, and then returned to Tangmao at the same time. ZHA. The Nubian bastard looked at Tangmao and his group, roared, and did not continue to attack, but chose to withdraw. Although Tangmao was very greedy for its spirit, after all, this was not just an ordinary demon territory, but also a place with a demon empire. So since the other party had already run away, he did not want to waste his magic energy and fight this tribe to the death. I didn't mean it. Apis looked at the demon group leaving, and said in a light voice. Although the attitude of this explanation was a bit casual, she still explained it. Tangmao naturally would not blame her and just said, I understand, but if you make a mistake, you must be punished. She still knew what this so-called punishment was, but she didn't say anything. Some things, after one or two times, the resistance is not so strong. A war caused by food is really not worth it. But this cleaned and roasted Nubian bastard tastes really delicious. Snow Girl and Flame Lady were satisfied and kept moaning. Obviously, the food in the human world was their favorite. Although Tangmao was a little bit immature, his cooking skills were still good. In fact, they didn't know that the reason why he could cook so delicious was just because he had all the small ingredients. This time, Tangmao brought very little real food, and more of it was small ingredients and water. After a late lunch, Flame Lady and Snow Girl went back to the contract space to rest. Apis, who wanted to run back to the contract space to rest, was left behind. If you don't let me rest, I can't do anything if I encounter a powerful demon in a place like this. Although Apis didn't feel any resistance in his heart, he naturally didn't come if he didn't want to be bitten. It's okay, don't you see how powerful your master is? Tangmao smiled. Are you really a human? Apis was actually quite curious. Isn't I a human? Don't you know what a man should have? Am I missing? Tangmao said with a sly smile. Apis was speechless. She really didn't understand what was in this human's mind. How dare he treat her, a descendant of Medusa, like this? However, no matter what Apis thought, Tangmao's idea was very clear. After having a good meal, they set up the tent and did business. Tonight was destined to be another beautiful night of spring. The next morning, when Tangmao woke up, he found that he seemed to have forgotten the way back yesterday. They didn't know where the maze was now, and even Apis couldn't tell. After all, she was so dizzy last night that she couldn't remember this. Looking at the endless yellow sand everywhere, it seemed that there was no retreat. It's all your fault, you bastard. Where did you bring me to? Because they didn't know where the road was, the two could only choose to move forward. There were so many dangers in this big desert, so they naturally wouldn't choose to walk. It happened that in the dimensional world, Ziohedi found a camel beast for him to use. It was a good mount that was necessary for going out. Speaking of which, Ziohedi is now doing very well in the dimensional world, and it seems that he has even got a few tigresses. There is no way. The demons that Tangmao met later were almost all monarchs. Ziohedi was just a great commander, and he couldn't help much, so he was directly ignored. Of course, in fact, now it has almost everything it needs to advance, and it only lacks a stronger tiger spirit. If it is promoted to a monarch, it must be a stronger blood tiger demon, but how can a stronger tiger demon spirit be so easy to get? As for those with weaker blood, although there are some, if they are not strong enough, what is the point of advancing? Even if it is used as a mount for himself, it is a bit embarrassing. Of course, Ziohedi has been following him loyally for so many years. Tangmao will naturally not treat it badly, and he has also told it that as long as there is a suitable tiger spirit, he will help it advance. After all, when he was still very weak, it followed him voluntarily. Now that he can't become stronger himself, he doesn't look down on it, right? Ziohedi also knew that he was very strong now, especially in the dark attribute. He could compete with the sub-commander. You know, although it was only a realm difference, it was also extremely large, and it could fight across levels, relying on this tyrannical bloodline and the assistance of dark energy. If it was promoted to an ordinary monarch casually, it might not be as strong as when it was at the commander level. This kind of advancement was not what it wanted. Tap tap, tap tap. The camel beast carried Tangmao and Apis, and kept moving forward. I don't know where the end is. Don't you think about where we are going, and how to leave this ghost place? If you rush in like this, if you enter the demon empire of the Sahara, there will be only one way to die. Apis looked back at the dog man who was taking advantage of him all the time, and said dissatisfiedly, "With me here, what are you afraid of? Isn't it just a demon empire?" Tangmao said indifferently. Anyway, he didn't believe that he was so unlucky that he didn't encounter a single demon wherever he went. Could it be that he would go all the way to the demon empire? The most important thing is that he doesn't know where to go now. This is completely an unknown number, and there is no guidance at all. I have grown a lot of meat recently. Not bad, not bad. It's all my credit. Since it is all unknown, choose a road to go, then naturally go in one direction. To be honest, if he knew that the Sahara Desert was such a bird, he would never think of coming here. Another day's journey ended, and nothing was gained. Moreover, today, whether it was flying in the sky or running on the ground, they didn't encounter a single monster. This situation often means that this is the territory of some big monsters or some ethnic groups. But what is more puzzling is that Apis didn't feel any huge monster. It's outrageous. Fortunately, with this little snake girl accompanying him at night, he won't be too lonely. Life in the desert is still quite experiential. Moreover, Apis's defense line has been continuously declining. It is estimated that it won't take long for him to complete the Zuzian achievement. In a blink of an eye, 3 consecutive days have passed. This is really a barren desert. What about the resources? Except for the yellow sand, I have never encountered anything. It's too much. I don't know who spread the news that this forbidden land is rich in resources. If anyone knows about it, I will definitely slap him in the face. The most outrageous thing is that this is not the Demon Empire, a forbidden land for humans. Why, apart from the Nubian bastard tribe I met when I first came in, I haven't encountered any demons. PS, Yushishi has updated, understand? If you haven't joined the full subscription group, remember to join the group to find me. Chapter 507 The Power of Nature. Subscribe please. Inside the tent, Apis, who had just drunk the pure milk, licked her lips, looking unsatisfied. Unfortunately, there was not much pure milk left, and he couldn't give her more. Otherwise, if they couldn't find prey later, or walked out of this desert, they might starve to death here. Of course, what Tangmao didn't know was that Apis didn't want to drink it at all. She had lost her appetite after drinking every day. It was a pity that Tangmao said that this was a nutritional supplement, and she had to choose to accept his good advice. Otherwise she would rather starve. Are you sure there is still no evil spirit around here? Tangmao said helplessly, playing with Apis's hair. Nonsense. If I really noticed it, would I be willing to hang out with you here every day? Who would want to stay in this kind of ghost place? It's even more disgusting to me than the place full of dead souls in Egypt. Apis said dissatisfiedly. Who knows if you have been pretending to be stupid, just to drink fresh pure milk? Tangmao said jokingly. When she said this, Apis looked like she was going to fight to the death with him. Although she was angry, she looked really cute and full of greed. Why don't you die? Apis didn't understand. What kind of face did she have to say such a thing? Question mark? This man is not worthy of being called a human being. As soon as her temper came up, she was immediately punished. After this slap, Apis lost her temper instantly. In addition to being wronged, she was frustrated. After all, she was the descendant of the dignified snake queen Medusa. With such noble blood, when had she ever been treated like this? Even though she had no real power, and was not as good as her eldest and second sisters, she was still worshipped. Even a senior Egyptian military officer had to please her. Unexpectedly, when she was weak, she was met by this damn human, and finally enslaved herself. Why, you don't accept it? Looking at Apis's frustrated look, Tangmao pulled her into his arms. After all, the tent was not big and could only accommodate one person, so in this case, Apis was naturally within easy reach. Cancel my contract, Apis said expressionlessly. Are you dreaming? Tangmao touched her forehead and said again after confirming that her brain was not burned. However, thinking about her own actions, it seemed a bit redundant. Although Apis was born to the Queen Mother Medusa and a human woman, the blood in her body was a demon after all, so her physique would not be bad. Aren't you afraid that I will die with you? Apis still looked cold, as if she really wanted to die together. Of course, if she died, she would only suffer a little mental damage. If it was in the city, it would not be a big deal, and she would recover after a period of time. However, in this wilderness, if it was true, it would be entirely possible that her body would be exposed in the wilderness. However, he obviously couldn't go along with the snake girl, otherwise, Zuzian would despise himself in the future. After all, a weak scholar could be clearly beaten by the white snake. What strength did he have? How could he not be beaten? I like to gamble. Today I bet that you are a person who cherishes life. Come on, let's start. Tangmao said, letting go of Apis, as if to see if I win or lose. Although Apis really didn't want to live like this, she died like this. She was even more unwilling. In the end, she could only lie down beside her, looking like I want to be quiet. Tangmao didn't mock or provoke her, but just lay down in the same way. I'm not afraid of death, but I still have things to do. Don't be too proud. Apis felt Tang Mao's breath and said coldly. Tang Mao pulled his hand, and the temperature at night was not so cold. I know, and I will help you. Facts have proved that having someone to keep warm is the most important thing to bring when training in the wild. With Apis, there is no need to worry about this in the future. No words were spoken that night. The next day, the two continued their journey. Because a strong sandstorm hit last night, in the morning, the tent mark had long disappeared. Their direction was also lost in an instant. After walking for so many days, the direction was lost just like that. But this was unstoppable. After all, it was the power of nature. Fighting with people and monsters, but in front of the power of nature, he was still too weak now. Of course, for strong men like the Emperor level, especially the Dark King of the Dark Plane, I'm afraid that the natural force will not harm him, right? After all, just a clone can have the strength of an emperor, which is not something that everyone can do. Without a direction, choose a new direction. After all, staying here will definitely end in death. Even if you are strong, you have to kneel without food and water. The most important thing is that he really doesn't have much rations. Apis also knew the current crisis. The rations have been a bit dry these days. Even pure milk has been diluted with water. Riding the camel beast found in the summoning plane, after walking for half a day, Tang Mao's demon bead suddenly lit up. After seeing his bead react, he took it out directly. In any case, it can light up, which is a small guide. At least the two of them don't have to rush on the road like this. What is this? Apis asked curiously, looking at the bead in Tang Mao's hand. Now they are really on the same boat. If Tang Mao dies, she will not survive either. So after seeing him take out such a thing with a look of joy, she was a little curious. This is my trump card. As long as it is full of energy, even if your Queen Mother Medusa encounters it, she can't do anything to me. Tang Mao pinched Apis's soft flesh and said, Humph, you don't know what you mean. Don't think you can deal with a stupid bird of low bloodline. Don't say my mother, even my two sisters. You will run away if you are afraid. Apis snorted coldly and said disdainfully. And he pushed Tang Mao's claws away. After all, taking advantage of me and looking down on the Medusa clan here, this person is simply too much. I will let you see my power when I have the chance. Tang Mao did not explain anything. After all, he had no way to use the demon system now. Even if he could use it, it would take a lot of spirit to offset the negative energy. Coincidentally, the spirits were all used by him to strengthen his skills. Now the intermediate thunder system and the intermediate fire system are already the 6th level of magic, and the 3rd enhanced space system has also completed the high level 5th level. The rest of the skill magic has also reached the 4th level. Just based on his magic star level, it is clear how many demons he has killed over the years. The demons that died in Tang Mao's hands must be a large tribe. Maybe even more. Anyway, he has no idea. As for why he did not strengthen the ice system and chose the space system, it was because his mental power was already at level 8. The space system with strong mental power is definitely the strongest magic of the same level. As long as the space magic is accompanied by the enhancement of mental power, not only can everything be used as a weapon, but also a crack will appear, and any magic that destroys, or does not destroy, will have to kneel. Moreover, space confinement, gravity. With so many tyrannical means, Tang Mao, who has felt the power of space magic, has any reason not to focus on space magic? As long as he improves his mental power by 1 realm, even if he is an opponent with 4 super level full cultivation, especially the elemental mage with output, he is not worth mentioning in front of him. Of course, if space magic reaches a certain level, and the mental power is like that, then let alone compared with the magic of the same level, even the 1st level destruction magic cannot be resisted by space magic. So, magic itself does not have too many differences in strength, it just depends on the individual situation. HMPH, don't be afraid of being hunted down when the time comes. If she hadn't been contracted, Apis would actually be willing to pretend to be an ordinary little girl and follow Tang Mao away. There is no way. Her eldest sister and second sister will not let her go. regardless of whether she has the strength to compete with them. Just having the blood of the Queen Mother Medusa, she is destined to die. She was weak in the demon tribe, so she wanted to use humans to become stronger. There was an officer in Egypt, who was actually the one she used. Chapter 508, The Reaction of the Beads, asking for monthly tickets. As for the pursuit that Apis mentioned, weren't they just her two sisters? For Tang Mao, he really wasn't afraid of the subordinates of the Supreme Lord at this stage. Not to mention some of his subordinates, even if they were the original snakes, Tang Mao had nothing to fear. At most, it was because the energy of the bead was not full, and it was more painful when the demons retaliated. I'm not lying to you, as long as the energy of this bead is full, no matter who is here, they can't hurt you. Although his strength has not changed much, with the power of Apis, after she turned into a demon again, it is absolutely indescribable horror. After all, her bloodline is not weaker than the elemental dullings such as Yanji and Zunu. What exactly is this bead? Looking at Tang Mao's appearance, it was obvious that he was not bragging to himself, which made Apis a little curious for a while. What kind of bead is this? Is it some high-level vessel? The two of them were now considered one, so there was no need for him to hide anything. He said bluntly, this bead contains the power of the devil. Once you use it, your strength plus my own strength will burst out dozens of times the power. Looking at Apis's unbelievable look, Tang Mao said again, I'm telling you something. On the land of China, I once fought with Khufu, the god of the underworld in Egypt. What? Apis was stunned. She knew Khufu. After all, in addition to dealing with snakes and scorpions, the biggest source of war in Egypt was the undead under Khufu's command. She naturally didn't care about those scattered undead, and they were not in her eyes at all. But Khufu knew. That was the top combat power in the world. Even her mother, the Snake Queen Medusa, might not be Khufu's opponent. The two sides in Egypt could live in peace until now, and that was entirely because Khufu knew that there was no benefit in fighting with Medusa's tribe. On the contrary, the city of living people was what they liked. As long as there is killing, there will be death, and the army of the undead will be continuously replenished. It was a little unbelievable for Apis to say that a superclass guy in front of him had fought with Khufu and was still standing here intact. However, Tang Mao's expression was obviously not as fooling as usual. Have you really fought with Khufu? Apis said again. Follow me with peace of mind, and you will understand in the future how correct your choice is. Tang Mao did not continue to explain. It was normal for Apis not to believe this. After all, he was an emperor. If he fought alone, he could only deal with some middle-level monarchs with low bloodlines. Even if there were powerful primary monarchs, he might not be able to kill them. It can only be said that he remained undefeated. Moreover, there is still a long time, and there is plenty of time to prove whether what he said is true or false. At present, it is natural to collect the energy of the demon beads. Now he still has a portion of time liquid in his hand. As long as he finds 2 portions of energy to absorb it, the demon in his body can be revived again. Although the backlash caused by the 2 demonizations in 1 year is also terrible. But compared with saving lives, what kind of serious trauma is the backlash? Following the guidance of the beads, the 2 rushed all the way to the other direction. In this barren desert, they really didn't know where they were walking. After nearly half a day, the 2 finally came to a large hill made of sand and stones. It is really hard to imagine that there is such a big mountain in such a place. It looks like this is not naturally formed. There must have been a magician fighting here, because there are some powerful earth magic here. After arriving here, his beads kept shining. Obviously, there is something on this mountain that interests him. Although it is not clear what it is, since he has come, he will naturally not return empty-handed. After collecting the camel, the 2 began to climb up the steep mountain. They didn't know what was going on. There was no road at the bottom of the mountain. Just after climbing for a few minutes, Apis suddenly looked tense. At the same time, Yang and Zunu in Tang Mao's contract space also linked Tang Mao's mind. There seems to be a powerful demon in this mountain, Apis reminded. Regardless of whether what Tang Mao said before was true or not, the current situation is that if she dies, Tang Mao cannot die, and if Tang Mao dies, she cannot live. Therefore, if he can avoid committing suicide, Apis is still unwilling to let him take risks. I know, there should be another purpose for me to come here. Tang Mao said disapprovingly. Just now, Yang and Zunu told Tang Mao that there are also elemental pets living here. Moreover, they also told him that the elemental pets here are very strong. At least they are at the level of a great monarch. You have to know that the elemental pets of a great monarch, even some supreme monarchs may not be able to deal with it. However, with 2 elemental pets, even if he does not give himself a contract, in his opinion, the other party should not fight with him. Moreover, the devil's beads lit up with difficulty, and he really didn't want to give up climbing. The most important thing is, if they don't go up, where should they go? Immediately, Tang Mao continued to climb with Apis. The mountain was very high. If he was not afraid of provoking the demons in the air without knowing it, and did not want to fight meaninglessly, Tang Mao would have flown with Apis. But in the demon's territory, even if he could kill, he still needed to be low-key. Hoo-hoo. When the 2 climbed all the way to the middle of the mountain, a sudden strong wind started. The sudden strong wind hit, and the 2 almost fell down without holding on. Fortunately, they were not without the ability to resist. Moreover, Tang Mao condensed a huge piece of ice in the first time, and wrapped the 2 around. Hoo-hoo. What Tang Mao did not expect was that the strong wind was full of powerful wind-attributed magic. This was not a natural wind, but a man-made one. Pala at the moment, when the strong wind swept over, the ice wall began to shatter. The yellow sandstorm enveloped them in the blink of an eye, and as the 2 watched, they saw a proud figure on the top of the huge sandstorm that rose to the sky. It was surrounded by suspended sand and gravel, and its pupils were filled with strong resentment and restlessness. The rolling sandstorm was also its masterpiece, because this guy was completely like a commander standing in the sandstorm army, or in other words, the sandstorm that spread through the sky and the earth was just a part of it. Although I have never seen such a creature, if I'm not mistaken, it should be the sandstorm evil spirit mentioned in the original book. The evil spirit just now should have come from it, Apis said vigilantly in the wind. Before Tang Mao opened his wings of wind and left, the door of the contract space suddenly opened. The next moment, 2 elemental goddesses, one red and one blue, floated out. When the fields of fire and ice opened, the sandstorm evil spirit actually paused. Moreover, the next moment, the violence and dust that was originally whistling calmed down in an instant. It seemed that seeing the other party withdraw the power of the wind, the snow girl and the flame lady also dispersed their own power at the same time. However, the fire element and the ice element here are extremely rare, so neither the flame lady nor the snow girl did not disperse all the sand and dust like the other party, but just stopped expressing hostility. Then, the snow girl looked at the sandstorm evil spirit, and asked in a puzzled voice. The snow girl seemed to not understand why this monster that could control the sand and dust attacked them for no reason. The most important thing was that she didn't understand why it looked like this when it was obviously emitting the breath of an elemental pet. The figure surrounded by the suspended sand and gravel appeared in front of the snow girl in an instant. Although it still maintained hostility towards Tang Mao, a human, it seemed to have seen a little elf like her in the world, so it was not so irritable. I don't know what the other party is communicating with the snow girl. When looking at Tang Mao, there is still a raging anger. After seeing that the other party had no ill intentions, Xiao Yanji also floated over and seemed to be expressing something with the snow girl. Tang Mao looked at Apis in confusion and then said, "What are they talking about? Why can't I understand it at all?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 509 Elemental Wind Princess. You know, I can communicate with Yanji and Zunu. Why can't I understand what they are saying today? What's going on? Apis heard this and said calmly, "This guy who attacked us seems to hate you humans. Who knows what you have done to hurt the heaven and earth?" "Damn, I just came here." Tang Mao said a little aggrieved. Although he did make trouble as soon as he came, and there was a big battle because of this, it was obviously not his intention. If he knew that the other party was so vengeful, he would have to kill all the birds that came out. Yowling. The 3 elemental pets were just like acting like a spoiled child there, and their voices were so nice. Of course, if it weren't for the storm demon spirit's vigilant eyes sweeping towards him from time to time, he could enjoy this pleasant sound. However, after all, it seems that the stupid woman Apis still didn't tell him what they were saying, and why he couldn't understand it. Look at me, I don't really understand. Maybe this is their unique language. Apis could only read the other party's displeasure with humans in his eyes. As for the others, she couldn't understand them either. So you don't understand anything, and you are pretending to be a big shot in front of me? Tangmao paused and curled her lips. Apis snorted lightly, and then said dissatisfiedly, I'm not omnipotent, how can I know everything so clearly? TSK. Tangmao looked at her with a little contempt. At this time, Yanji retreated and looked at Tangmao to express their conversation in a whimpering voice. Yanji told Tangmao, she is not a demon spirit, but a real elemental pet of the wind element, Sandstorm Princess, and the reason for attacking them is that a human has hurt her children. It seems that someone wants to get the little Sandstorm Princess, that is, her offspring, as a contract pet. But it was discovered by it, but although she injured them, but did not kill them, she thought the matter was over. But she didn't expect that it underestimated the greed of humans. One of them was not only not grateful for his letting him go, but he even stepped into the Sahara Desert again. Moreover, when he just came back from going out, the other party actually set up a strange magic array. In the end, in order for its child to survive, it risked the evil energy of the array to invade its body and injured it. However, the other party was strong and finally let him escape. Although its offspring survived the desperate situation, it didn't know when it would be born. The most important thing is that the magic energy in this body seems to be constantly trying to devour itself every day. All of this was caused by the initial letting go. Fortunately, it was nearly 2 years ago that it felt the other party's breath, and for this reason it even rushed out of the maze and finally got its revenge. The reason why he attacked just now was naturally because he thought Tangmao and the others were here to steal his child. However, fortunately, 2 elemental pets that had reached maturity, Yanji and Zunu, appeared, and they each defended their own unscrupulous fathers, which made the Sandstorm evil spirit stop its anger and murderous intent. After listening to the general explanation of Yanji, Tangmao understood why in the original book, as soon as the superclass wizard who came here to rescue arrived, a powerful demon like the Sandstorm evil spirit suddenly appeared. Of course, now it is Sandstorm Wind G. It turns out that there is such a person in the team that came here to rescue. But Tangmao was very curious, how did the other party know that there would be Sandstorm Wind G here? This doesn't seem to be a natural place for tornadoes, right? The place where elemental pets are born should not be a place where elements are particularly dense. His doubts did not get any explanation, but Zunu also retreated, as if to tell Tangmao that Sandstorm Wind G could not attack again, but asked them to leave immediately. Obviously, even with the presence of Yanji and Zunu, 2 elemental elves, it can only keep her from being angry and destroying Tangmao. But if she wants to go up the mountain, it is impossible. Even though Yanji and Zunu have expressed that they are willing to follow Tangmao, Fengji still has no good impression of him. Tangmao naturally doesn't want to leave like this. After all, the bead is still on, which means that there must be energy replenishment on the top of the mountain that he needs. If he misses it, it would be a pity. After thinking about it, Tangmao said to Zunu again, girl, tell it that maybe I can help its child get a new life. Ask it if it needs it. Of course, he doesn't know any healing skills, but as long as he can go up, won't he have a chance to find something that the bead is interested in? After absorbing it, let Fengji tell them the way to leave, so that even if they leave like this, it won't be a loss. As for being powerless to go up, that is certainly certain. After all, he didn't go to rescue, but just went up to harvest some energy. If he can't save it, it won't hurt it, so it won't attack him casually, right? After hearing what Tangmao said, the snow girl floated over again. But it was obvious that the other party didn't seem to be very convinced. Apis looked at Tangmao's doubts about going to the top of the mountain and wondered, if this bead is full, will it really have the power of a divine weapon? After all, Tang Mao had already encountered such a powerful existence, and he still insisted on going up the mountain to take a risk. There was a reason to convince her. Of course, otherwise why do you think I'm still so persistent in going up the mountain now? Tang Mao replied. I don't know how they talked. Fengji just stared at Tang Mao and the others, but did not respond for a long time. Tang Mao was a little impatient, but there was no way. This was an elemental pet. It was different from those ordinary monarchs. Even if he was impatient, he had to endure it. Without the assistance of the demon, facing an elemental pet of this level, there was almost no chance of survival. Yo. After a moment, the Fengji spoke again. The snow girl also floated back and told Tang Mao with her that the other party allowed them to enter. But if it can't treat its child, it must leave immediately. Otherwise, it will not be polite. Tang Mao looked at Fengji and nodded. Don't worry, I have no ill intentions. Fengji obviously didn't believe it, but then the hand wrapped in gravel stretched out, and a whirlwind filled the feet of Tang Mao and Apis. Then the two of them went straight up to the top of the mountain. Tang Mao was actually ready to draw the constellation the moment the other party moved. Although he seemed very relieved on the surface, it was not the case in reality. Even if it is an elemental pet, it is not tamed. Who knows if the other party will suddenly attack. In fact, Apis was also full of vigilance the moment the other party took action. If she didn't have this vigilance, how could she survive until now? Being caught by Tang Mao was definitely an accident. After all, she would never have thought that Tang Mao and his group would dare to run into her palace. Moreover, the periphery was full of her subordinates. What made her most helpless was that when they rushed there, she was at her weakest. That would be fine. So far, what Apis didn't understand was why Tang Mao, a delicate little beauty, actually recognized her identity. Moreover, how did he know all this? It was as if there was a traitor around her. However, this was obviously impossible. Those who knew that she was weak were almost all monsters. There were not many monsters like her who could speak human language after being born by Medusa and human women. At least below the emperor level, there should be few. At a setting here, after all, there are so many strange calls that can be spoken by emperors and above. I can't think of so many. At least there is no one around her. As for her eldest sister and second sister, although they both want to kill her to compete with each other, they will never unite with humans. After all, Medusa's bloodline is noble. In their eyes, humans are all inferior creatures. So for them to unite with humans, unless the sun rises from the west, it is impossible. Of course, even if there is one, he is the kind of person with high power and strength, and definitely not someone like Tang Mao who only has a lightning cultivation level that suddenly surpasses the previous level. Although his combat power is indeed terrifying, who would test his actual combat ability for no reason? Chapter 510. There are too many unknown things in the world. With the help of Fengji, the speed of ascent is indeed incomparable. As they ascended, Tang Mao and Apis discovered that this mountain was 1,000 meters high. After reaching the top of the mountain, they couldn't help but be slightly surprised. It's okay to have such an impossible mountain, but the top of the mountain is so boundless. Although there are few plants here, it is almost equivalent to 2 realms compared to the bottom. Even Tang Mao was a little suspicious. Have they left the territory of the Sahara Desert? Fengji, Yangji and Zunyu came over at this time. It is rare for 3 elemental elves to appear in one place at the same time. However, compared with the goddess appearance of Yangji and Zunyu, Fengji lost her original beauty. Moreover, because she was cheated once, she was full of hatred. In fact, think about it. The first time someone paid attention to her child, she let the other party go. But I didn't expect that the person who was let go would step here for the second time. Moreover, he used a formation to stop himself and take away his child. If you don't have hostility towards humans, you'd be really stupid. After reaching the top of the mountain, Fengji didn't stop, but she didn't continue to help Tang Mao and Apis move forward, but led the way herself. Tang Mao still remembered why he came up, but as he walked, he found that the place where his beads pointed to was actually the same as the place where Fengji led the way. Suddenly, Tang Mao had a very bold guess that the person who came here To steal Zhao Fengji as a summoned pet might have used a special method to do something that was harmful to the world and organized a large formation. Otherwise, how could Fengji become like this in the end? Look at her current appearance, but she doesn't look like an elemental pet at all. She looks like a demon condensed by a sandstorm. Recalling the original work, Fan and the others had just been rescued not long ago, and the superclass mage who entered them lost contact. Moreover, it seems that Fengji only appeared when he came to rescue. If Tang Mao guessed correctly, the one who harmed Fengji should be the superclass wizard Daewen who came to rescue. I remember that it was mentioned that Daewen was familiar with this place, which means that he had been here. Moreover, Tang Mao also remembered that there was indeed a distress signal here when they were training. Obviously, although they did not come, there were others who stepped into this place. Moreover, the news also reported that a superclass wizard, a high-level wizard who came to rescue, and the government team were all buried in the maze of the Sahara Desert. Seeing Tang Mao following Fengji silently and rushing to the place where she led, Apis was a little confused. She didn't think Tang Mao had a way to save the other party. After all, she knew Tang Mao's length during this period of time. Since he didn't have this ability, and now he didn't go to find the things needed for the beads, why did he follow Fengji all the time? Apis was puzzled, wondering if Tang Mao wanted to have any ideas about other people's descendants. She knew that, as long as they were elemental pets, they could share a contract with multiple people. However, no one had ever done it, so no one knew about it. Think about it, how many people were favored by an elemental pet, which was already very remarkable. 2 or 3. I'm afraid she was living in a dream. Hey, aren't you here to collect the things you need for your bead? Why are you following Fengji all the time? The more she thought about it, the more something was wrong. Apis whispered. Apis also had the ability of mind magic, and she could do it even without speaking. But the bead gave me a hint that this road is the way. Tang Mao responded. Apis was not feeling well, but she didn't expect that this place would be so big. Moreover, no matter where you go, this earth magic is so strong. After walking for a while, Tang Mao paused because he suddenly felt a strong wind attribute energy. It seemed like the feeling of soul seed. ? But at the moment, when Fengji looked back, he continued to walk forward honestly. There was no way. Fengji was still on alert. If he made any move, he would be noticed immediately. In this case, he naturally did not dare to be too ostentatious. Yo. At this moment, Fengji suddenly ran away and then floated up directly. The next moment, she flew quickly to the distance. Looking at Fengji who suddenly flew away, Tang Mao paused and looked at Yanji and Zunu in confusion. Yingying Zunu hurriedly explained to Tang Mao it was because Fengji felt that other demons appeared in the place where he lived. As Zunu said this, Apis also felt a very strong demonic energy. Indeed, I also felt a very strong demonic energy, and there are quite a lot of them. Apis said. Let's go, let's follow. Tang Mao thought about it and said. There was no way not to follow. The energy needed for his beads was in the direction where Fengji flew. Apis said hesitantly, this is the Sahara Desert. All the battles have nothing to do with us. Don't act rashly. Otherwise, if you provoke a tribe or an empire, we will really be buried in the desert. The Sahara Desert is indeed a forbidden place for humans, but it is not full of monarchs. If there are monarchs frequently appearing, it is very likely that they are from the Sahara Demon Empire. If they offend a tribe, they have the strength to fight, but if they offend the entire Demon Empire, it will not be a simple matter to escape from here. If you provoke the peerless demon of the Demon Empire, even if you escape to the ends of the earth, you will not be let go. If you want to resist the attack of a Demon Empire, you may need a country to fight. You know, even if it is a monarch level creature or a command level creature, humans are generally unwilling to provoke it easily. After all, the consequences are really extremely serious. Apis is at least a big boss of the Egyptian snake tribe, and he still understands these things. If Tang Mao caused trouble here, it would probably cause a demon empire to launch a full-scale war against humans. The start of such a horrific war would definitely be a river of blood. Moreover, no one knew how powerful the Sahara Demon Empire was. After all, humans who set foot here were just stepping in a circle. Who dared to really go deep? Even if they went deep, they would probably become a pile of bones or demon fesses. Any place that humans cannot explore would be indescribable. Just like China's Kunlun Mountain, although it is not ranked very strong in the world, how terrifying is the real Kunlun Demon Empire? Who has seen it? Even the tombs of the dead in the ancient capital today, no one has yet understood it clearly. Although the ancient king is the ancestor of the dead, after so many dynasties, the dead are not just one king. The kings of other dynasties may still be sleeping now. The real ancient tomb is too big. Because there is no civil war, it is almost the exclusive tomb of the kings of each dynasty. Over time, the cemetery has expanded to be extremely large. Of course, the difference between the ancient king and them is that his tomb is not actually in it. It is very likely that he had already built the evil abyss when he was alive. Therefore, where there is no ancient king, no one knows what kind of terrifying undead there is. But if you can become the leader of a dynasty, as long as you choose to transform the undead and not reincarnate, your strength will definitely not be weaker than the 8 dead kings. In fact, after all, it is still that human beings are too weak. Of course, the world is also corrupt and speechless. Some magicians who have God-given magic and powerful magic destructive power are also listed as disasters and have to be dealt with. It is ridiculous enough. Just like Kinure, she is obviously an extremely outstanding ice mage. Although she may not be able to control her own power at the beginning, as she slowly practices and recuperates, she can already control her own power. The people of the Holy Court still don't let her go. The reason was even more far-fetched. It was said that she could not control the magic and would hurt ordinary people. But who knew the real inside story? Perhaps she refused to join the invitation of the Holy Court. However, he also knew that Apis was doing it for his own good, or for her own good, so he nodded and said, "Don't worry, I'm not that reckless." Speaking of which, he has never been an Aussie person. If he can't improve his strength, why should he participate? Even if it is a matter between people, he mostly chooses to watch coldly, not to mention the demons. The main reason why he wants to go there is that the things needed by the demon beads are there. There is nothing more important to him than gathering the energy of the demon beads in this world. After all, as long as the beads are full of energy, even in this demon empire, he doesn't have to worry about encountering any terrifying existence and destroying himself. Strength is the most secure thing. Seeing this, Apis didn't say anything. After all, she had already reminded everyone that should be reminded, and what to do next was up to Tang Mao himself. She couldn't control him, so she could only pray that this bastard would cherish his life and not commit suicide. Just as they were rushing there, they suddenly saw a rolling dust condensing not far away, and a huge wave of dust appeared again. Fortunately, it was not aimed at them this time. Chapter 511, V10 point update. Tang Mao and Apis came to the place outside the sand and dust, and then they stopped. If they couldn't get closer, they might be hurt. The violent sand and dust rolled up everything here, and it was only after getting closer that Tang Mao and Apis found that the sand and dust were not just what Fengji said, but there was even another wind-attributed magic. They were colliding with it. This kind of violent sand and dust collides head-on. I'm afraid only this kind of demon can think of it. Rumble. The strong sand and dust kept hitting, and everything nearby soon suffered great damage. But after all, it was because of the distance. Tang Mao and Apis could not see clearly what kind of demon was fighting with Fengji there. However, what they both could conclude was that the opponent was definitely at the level of a great monarch, and might even be stronger. We'd better leave here quickly. It seems that a large number of demons have come to the place where we just came. Just when Tang Mao wanted to see what was going on, Apis suddenly reminded him. Tang Mao paused after hearing this, and then looked back. However, he did not see any demons in the sky. Apis said again. Tang Mao raised his head, and the next moment he saw several commander-level desert eagle owls in the sky. They were extremely large, and on these desert eagle owls, there were actually a large number of Husha wolves. Oh woo. Even on the largest desert eagle owl, there was a Cheyenne wolf that was even larger and more imposing than the winged wolf that was seen at the beginning. It was not only a commander level, but also seemed to have reached the level of a great commander level demon wolf. When they were about to catch up, the Cheyenne wolf suddenly howled throughout the sky, and the desert eagle owls began to descend after hearing the Cheyenne wolf's order. Apathy hurriedly pulled Tangmao to hide behind a small hill nearby. Obviously, she really didn't want Tangmao to get involved, because if this was really a demon empire, then if they wanted to leave the Sahara Desert safely, they would probably have a life or death experience. So even though she was very disdainful of it, she still chose to hide. At this time, after the Cheyenne wolf landed, its subordinates, the Husher wolves, also landed. A closer look showed that the wolf pack had a total of 2,000 or 3,000, and each of them was almost a powerful demon at the level of a general. With such a lineup, even a team of high-level magicians might not be able to cope with it. However, what made Tangmao a little puzzled was, what were so many demons doing here? It didn't look like there were abundant resources here, did it? Moreover, in the battle between the two great monarchs at this time, even if they were stronger demons at the level of a general, they would definitely die if they were involved in this kind of magic collision. What made him even more confused was that these desert eagle owls were obviously demons at the level of commanders, so why were they willing to be stepped on by a group of general level Husher wolves? Even if there were Cheyenne wolves to deter them, it wouldn't be like this, right? They should be the demons in the Sahara Demon Empire. Apathy seemed to see Tangmao's doubts and told him with telepathy. After hearing what Apis said, Tangmao was even more confused. Why would Fengji provoke the next demon empire? Awoo. After watching his brothers fall, the Cheyenne wolf howled again, and then the Husher wolves rushed into the storm without hesitation. Even if some of them were swept by the wind and cut in the sky as soon as they stepped in, it still did not stop them from moving forward. Apis, what are they going to do? Looking at the wolves rushing in, Tangmao asked. How would I know? Apis shook her head. She was not a know-it-all of the demons. How about we go in and take a look? Tangmao said again. Seeing that the other side's general level demons had broken in, he really wanted to go in. After all, the beads had not stopped until now, as if they had encountered something they particularly liked. We can wait until their battle is over before we look for the things you want. If we enter now, we will not only fight with the demons of the Sahara Demon Empire, but we will also most likely anger Fengji. Now it doesn't distinguish between friends and enemies, Apathy reminded discontentedly, looking at Tangmao, who looked like he was courting death. Well, after hearing what Apathy said, Tangmao's restless heart calmed down a lot. Moreover, what she said seemed to be right. As long as there was energy suitable for the demon beads here, it was certain that it could not escape. In this case, why not wait until they were done fighting before entering? If we enter now, we will probably be attacked by both sides. Moreover, if Fengji and the other party fight to the point of both being injured, it would be even more wonderful if I could subdue it. Although this would be a bit difficult for a demon, to force a demon to do something. As long as we could make a contract, why would we be afraid that it would hold a grudge? Isn't Apathy the best example? Moreover, following me would not harm it. Speaking of which, he was also doing it for Fengji's sake. In fact, if possible, Tangmao wanted the little Fengji more, but Fengji had already said that her child was attacked by an unknown formation. Although she retained her vitality, she was unable to be born. Although she said this to the snow girl, Tangmao felt that the little Fengji was probably dead. Moreover, although Fengji was not beautiful enough, she was strong. If he could subdue her, he would not have to spend money on milk powder and would directly increase his strength several times. How could he not be tempted? Awoo. Awoo. The Husher wolves that entered the sandstorm were obviously not all intact. In just a moment, many wolf howls were heard. Listening to their painful howls, it can be concluded that their end is not good. As for the battle between Fengji and the other monarch, it seems to be endless, and the wind element around are still gathering here. The wolf howls are still coming out, but at this moment, Tangmao's bead reacted again, as if the thing it wanted was actually moving here. It was also at this time that the overwhelming wind suddenly dissipated, and then the sand and dust on the ground began to rise and fall into small hills, as if to block the demon wolf running out from inside. Among them, the Cheyenne wolf, who was just so aggressive, didn't even have the strength to block it. In an instant, it was pierced through the body by the sharp cone, condensed by sand and stones. Chapter 512. Take action. Who would have thought that the commander level demon wolf, which was originally so aggressive, would be destroyed in the blink of an eye. As for the elites of the general level, they were even more vulnerable. Fengji casually released a few wind blades, which turned them into fragments. It was at this time that Tangmao and Apis could see clearly what the demon chasing behind them looked like. Is that a desert sub-dragon? This is a dragon king with a very close bloodline to the dragon clan. It can be said that in this world, where real dragons are almost extinct, sub-dragons are quite powerful demons. After all, even some pseudo-dragons can dominate all over the world, not to mention this sub-dragon. Especially this sub-dragon has reached the level of a great monarch. Humph, it's just a low-level creature stained with some dragon blood. What's the fuss about it? Apis looked disdainful. If it was a real dragon, it could still give it some face, but just a sub-dragon? It's not worth it to care about it at all. Speaking of which, Medusa's bloodline is not much worse than those real dragons. Can you beat him? Tangmao heard her contempt, and said in a low voice, if I hadn't been contracted by you, how could I not beat a mere sub-dragon? Apis was unhappy again. Although Tangmao's real combat power was very strong, her superclass cultivation made it impossible for her to exert all her strength. It was simply forcibly weakened. Tangmao originally wanted to stimulate her, but she didn't expect to stimulate herself. However, after the cultivation reached the superclass, it was not so easy to improve. It's not that he didn't want to improve, but it was quite difficult to improve. The two sides chased each other, and this way made the huge hill fall apart. However, Fengji seemed to focus on the demon wolf not far ahead, and what was strange was that it didn't kill it, but just cleared the obstacles that wanted to stop it. At the same time, Tangmao's demon bead also moved with the chased demon wolf. Obviously, what he wanted should be the same as what the Sahara Demon Empire wanted. But he didn't know what kind of thing could make his beads interested, and Fengji so cautious, and this demon empire also came to snatch it. The desert eagle owl saw the demon wolf running in the front, and flew over one by one to greet it. Seeing this, Fengji once again turned into a huge sandstorm evil spirit. When she was about to strangle it, she was blocked by the chasing desert dragon. Roar. The desert dragon looked at Fengji and roared, as if to express that with it here, don't think about snatching what they want. Fengji, who turned into a sandstorm evil spirit, was also full of anger, and roared continuously. This sharp sound seemed to be really angry. Then it condensed with its hands, and the huge stone rolled over the desert dragon, as if it wanted to completely wrap it up with the boulder. Desert dragon was extremely disdainful of Fengji's boulders. He blew out a breath of dragon, and instantly shattered all the surrounding sand and stones. Hoola la hoola la. After the boulders shattered, Desert Dragon once again stopped Fengji, who wanted to chase and kill the Husher wolf. You don't want to die. Apis looked at Tangmao, who rushed out and hurriedly followed him. She was about to explode. She didn't know what this stupid man was thinking. He actually came out. Moreover, he was also running for the wolf. The wolf has what I want. You go and take it. After you get it, we will leave. Tangmao said disapprovingly. If he left like this without getting anything, he would be unwilling. As he said that, the wind wings behind Tangmao flapped, and the next moment, he had appeared in front of more than a dozen desert eagle owls. Cuckoo. Seeing Tangmao's sudden appearance, more than a dozen commander level desert eagle owls were alert. Then, they moved their wings and the feathers flew towards Tangmao like flying knives. More than a dozen desert eagle owls turned their feathers into sharp blades and shot at Tangmao at the same time, which felt like 1,000 arrows were fired at the same time. Ice crystal prison. Bang 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 bang, the ice wall appeared, but the feather blades did not show any face, and poked a hole in the ice wall in an instant? Fortunately, Tangmao's reaction was fast enough. At the moment, when the ice wall was broken, he cast space magic. The defensive power of the Wall of Mind was almost much stronger than the ice wall. However, at the moment of blocking, he hurriedly drew the silver constellation. Teleport. After hiding a little, the silver light around Tangmao tore a crack behind the space wall. Space crack. The moment the crack appeared, countless feather blades were directly swallowed up in it. Although the attack power of these desert eagle owls was beyond his imagination, He was not a vegetarian. The moment the flame in his hand ignited, Xiao Yanji merged into his body. The whole person completely turned into a flame tyrant and stayed in the air. Those desert eagle owls wanted to shoot through him with sharp blades again, but how could he suffer the same loss twice? Skyflame Funeral Fiery Hellfire Dragon. The power of the 6th level advanced star. After the fusion of 4 soul fires, the new skills revealed. This was the first time he released it. Roar, roar, roar. A fire dragon rose out of the sea of fire that soared into the sky, and with the sea of fire that dyed the sky red, it sprayed straight towards the more than 10 desert eagle owls. Seeing this, more than 10 desert eagle owls immediately vomited yellow sand, as if they wanted to use the yellow sand to extinguish Tang Mao's fire. But this is a hellfire of 4 fires combined into one. Not to mention the yellow sand. Even water magic may not be able to extinguish it. Seeing that the fire wave did not extinguish at all, several desert eagle owls naturally wanted to turn around and escape. But how could this fire wave give them a chance? Almost in an instant, they were all swallowed up in it. Some of them dodged in the past. Although they were not swallowed by the fiery fire dragon, they were extremely painful under the burning of the sea of fire. For a while, the painful howling sounded again. Exclamation mark. Skyflame Funeral Thousand Petal Flame Flower. Seeing that there were still a few who were not dead, Tang Mao hurried to make up for it. This was already a sea of fire, and when the flame petals bloomed, it was like adding fuel to the fire. More than a dozen commander level demons could not do anything. They were still melted into residual souls in an instant. Chapter 513. Fighting the Desert Dragon. After he dealt with these command level mounts, Apis also successfully completed the task. The wolf that was running wildly just now was carried over by her. At the moment, when the Husher wolf came over, the demon bead was like a young man seeing a top grade queen, and it kept boiling. However, Tang Mao looked at this huge Husher wolf, and it looked so ordinary, just like those Husher wolves, so why would it interest the bead? Immediately, Tang Mao took the bead, and placed it next to the Husher wolf, and the bead instantly emitted a ray of light. It was not the kind that was very dazzling, but it was on the surface of Tang Mao. There was something it liked here, and it was something it liked very much. After Tang Mao looked at it curiously, he forcibly pried open the mouth of the Husher wolf with all his strength. At the moment, when its wolf mouth opened, a black evil spirit rushed into the sky, as if it wanted to escape. The demon bead was also extremely sensitive. When this evil spirit with intelligence wanted to escape, it was absorbed by it. Although the evil energy wanted to resist, it was just a wisp of gas after all, and it couldn't resist at all. Moreover, the demon bead was specially designed to absorb this, and no matter how it struggled, it seemed so powerless. Apis looked at the evil energy in front of her, stepped back a little with some disgust, and then said in confusion, "What is this? Why did I feel a little alert when it appeared just now? This is the evil energy that can control humans. Of course, I don't know whether it can control monsters. However, I don't know how it was transformed." Tang Mao shook his head and said half knowingly, "Anyway, no matter what it is, it has a great effect on me, which is enough. Moreover, this thing is worthy of making the demon bead boil for a long time. It has absorbed 1 grid of energy, but it hasn't stopped yet. You know, this bead can only absorb 1/3 of the useful things. But today it doesn't mean to stop." Roar. Just as the two of them were watching the beads perform, a dragon roar suddenly came from behind. Tang Mao and Apis looked back, and saw that Feng Ji, who was as strong as Feng Ji, was hid on the ground. The huge foot of the desert dragon stepped on her slightly thin body. Fortunately, it was covered with gravel, so she was not trampled to death. At this moment, Tang Mao happened to see what appeared in the stomach of the Husher wolf. It was actually an egg. Moreover, after absorbing the evil spirit, the bead was actually ready to absorb the life on the egg. Immediately, Tang Mao stopped it. After a closer look, he found that the energy of the bead had reached 2/3, and even the 3rd grid was filled. If Kinshuo hadn't seen the egg, he might have continued to let it absorb, but after seeing the egg, if his guess was right, this should be the little Feng Ji. It seems that it still has the breath of life. Maybe the evil spirit wants to occupy this body, so it has caused the little Feng Ji to not break out of the shell until now. And the reason why the bead wants to absorb it should be that the little Fengji in the egg has mutated. Not only does it absorb it, it may also get the energy it wants from it. It's like the energy of Fengji's sandstorm may come from this. The reason why Fengji was defeated so quickly at this time was probably because the backlash of that power began. It was probably suppressing it all the time before, but just now, because of the battle with the desert dragon, it could not suppress it anymore, so it was powerless. Unfortunately, the power in Fengji's body had completely merged with it, so the demon beads were not very interested in it. Of course, the main reason was that there was no way to absorb it. So Tang Mao had no choice, and even wanted to turn around and run away. But when he saw Fengji and Yalong staring at him, he knew very well that if he ran, he would probably cause hostility from the two monarchs. Apis, what should we do? Tang Mao looked at the little snake girl and asked. Apis felt unhappy when she heard it. What should we do? She knew what to do. It was impossible to stay out of it now. Kill it, or we die. Apis responded coldly. After she finished speaking, Yang Ji and Zunu appeared at the same time. Tang Mao, who lost the combination of Yang Ji, instantly lost the feeling of the fire tyrant, but he still had thunder. Then, Apis, Snow Girl, and Flame Lady all rushed towards the Asian dragon. Before the Asian dragon could give Fengji a fatal blow, it was blasted away from Fengji by the two energy columns of ice and fire. Apis danced even more gracefully and tried to control the Asian dragon with a mind magic. But the desert Asian dragon was not an ordinary monarch, and Apis' strength was not at its peak now, so how could she control it? Roar. After a dragon roar, the huge tail swung directly towards Apis. Bang. Fortunately, Tang Mao was quick-witted and saved her when the opponent's big tail fell down. Are you stupid? With your current strength, you still want to use the mind magic? Do you think it will work? After saving Apis, Tang Mao couldn't help scolding. Although Apis was very unhappy, he didn't say a word. After all, it was indeed his negligence. When the desert Asian dragon attacked Apis, Flame Lady and Snow Girl baptized it with ice and fire. However, this world of ice and fire is not for its enjoyment, but for its great output. Although the desert dragon has amazing defense, it also feels pain under the impact of the two elemental goddesses. The dragon roars continuously, but no matter how it attacks, the petite Yanji and Zunu easily dodge. After seeing this, the desert dragon slaps the hill with its huge dragon claws, and the yellow sand on the ground instantly rises to the sky and soon forms a huge sandstorm. After the sandstorm condenses, the power of the ice and fire element is blocked at the periphery. Obviously, the opponent's control of the wind attribute energy seems to be at the same level as that of the injured Fengji. No wonder it dares to fight hard. Seeing this, Apis slaps the ground with her jade hand, and a large amount of earth element want to wrap the desert dragon's sandstorm, but it only reaches half of the degree and encounters great resistance. After watching Apis, Zunu and Yanji successfully hold each other back, Tang Mao hurriedly draws the Star Palace. In fact, his thunderbolts were several times more powerful than the ice and fire of Snow Girl and Flame Lady. After all, little Flame Lady and himself could barely release the fire of destruction, but Tang Mao could completely release the thunderbolt of destruction by himself. This was the power of the Heaven Seed plus the God Seal Praise Ceremony. Chapter 514 Little Fengji. After the constellations were connected one by one, the shocking Star Palace emerged. At the same time, the sky, which was covered with dark clouds at some point, was also formed. When the Star Palace was connected, or Thunder Halberd was instantly condensed. The terrifying killing power emitted from the Thunder Halberd made Fengji, who was dying there, stunned. Who would have thought that a human with low cultivation could burst out such a terrifying momentum? Even the power of this Thunder Halberd has crushed the power of the Snow Girl and others. It is really terrifying. Roar. The desert dragon seemed to feel the threat from the thunder, but it could not move at all. Whether it was Apis, Yanji or the Snow Girl, fighting alone, it would definitely not be its opponent, but these three actually beat it up. For a while, even if its level was above them, it was not easy to get rid of it. After all, they were not ordinary little demons. Get out of the way. After the Thunder Halberd completed the gathering of thunder, Tang Mao shouted. They all had telepathy with him, so even though the situation was very chaotic, they still immediately expressed their understanding, and each of them retreated, allowing the sandstorm to sweep away. And at the moment they retreated, the thunder halberd fell from the sky. The power of this halberd is absolutely comparable to forbidden magic. Boom boom, with a deafening sound of thunder, the thunder halberd landed above the sandstorm, and the thunder directly shook off the sandstorm rolled by the dragon, and then directly inserted into its huge body. Boom. The violent sound of thunder explosions came out, causing the already disintegrating hill to collapse directly. Exclamation mark. Such a hill was blasted into a huge deep pit. When the thunder power that caused the earth shaking dissipated, Tangmao opened the wings of wind to go over and find out. In his opinion, even if it was a dragon, it was only a great monarch level dragon. Under this bombardment equivalent to forbidden magic, there was no possibility of survival. However, when they approached the deep pit, the ancient dragon actually jumped out. Question mark? Roar. Even though it was already bleeding, it still completed another dragon breath. Tangmao was not alert at all at this time. After all, in his opinion, the ancient dragon was doomed. But he never thought that the beast was not dead, but also had the ability to fight back. It was really shocking. Fortunately, at the moment, when the opponent's dragon breath was sprayed out, Tangmao's automatic defense ice wall emerged and blocked the ancient dragon's bombing. Fortunately, the ancient dragon's output was insufficient. Otherwise, this ice wall alone could not stop it. And Apis, Snow Girl and Little Flame Princess, after seeing Tangmao being bombed, they also released the power of destruction at the same time. The three elemental powers of fire, ice, and earth completely rushed into the ancient dragon's body. It seemed that the ancient dragon was originally planning to pull Tangmao for a 1-for-1 exchange, but it was a pity that it did not succeed. And now its life is obviously coming to an end. At the moment of the three-party element bombardment, it fell to the ground again. Apis looked at Tangmao and said, "Are you okay?" Tangmao stood up and shook his head. Although the shock just now was indeed very strong, he was in a dying state and would not hurt himself. Of course, this was thanks to his automatic ice defense. Otherwise, even if he defended in time, he would be in a mess. Damn, I was careless. Fortunately, I have all the functions, Tangmao said with some fear. At this time, the slightly anxious Shatter the Snow Girl came over. Hearing this, Tangmao and Apis hurried over and saw Yanji and Zunu staying beside Fengji in the distance. It seems that it is dying. Immediately, they also rushed over. After seeing Tangmao coming over, the Snow Girl said in a whimpering voice, "Fengji wants to see its child. Now that it looks like this, the little Fengji must belong to her." So Tangmao would not be stingy. Besides, this was someone else's child. What reason did he have to take it for himself? Tangmao handed over Xiao Fengji's egg, as if he felt that Xiao Fengji's vitality was revived again. The last trace of hostility in Fengji's eyes was completely dissipated. Yee then it looked at Tangmao again, and I don't know what it was saying. The Snow Girl next to it immediately explained in a whimper. It seems that Fengji's mother knows that she is dying and hopes that he can adopt Xiao Fengji. Tangmao originally meant this and immediately nodded and responded, "Don't worry, I will let it grow up safely." It seems that seeing her child being rescued, Fengji's years of resentment also dissipated. They are the darlings of nature. They are not enemies of demons or humans. They are not warlike in the wild, unless they are maliciously invaded in their territory. The reason why it is so irritable is just because of the human who let it go out of his soft heart. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be what I'm now. If it weren't for that human, how could my offspring not be born until now? But now, she, whose child was saved by Tangmao, is full of gratitude. Yee. Fengji didn't know what to say in the end, but it seemed that it was really over. She died before she finished speaking. Zunu said that Fengji just told them to burn its body and then leave here quickly and walk down the mountain. It is the entrance to the maze and the exit from here. However, what she didn't finish in the end seemed to be to protect little Fengji well, and then she was gone. She was a dedicated translator and told Tangmao all of Fengji's original words. Tangmao looked at Fengji in front of him and finally dropped a wisp of flame as she wished. The moment the flame burned in its body, he was ready to leave like this, but Zunu said that he would watch it dissipate before leaving. He just thought that the eldest girl might not have the heart. When Fengji was completely melted, a large amount of wind energy was emitted, mixed with a lot of sand and dust. Finally, it all melted into a stone. Zunu asked Tangmao to put away the stone. In fact, he would do the same without Zunu telling him. As long as his brain was not pitted, could he not see the importance of this stone? When Tangmao picked up the stone, he felt a strong wind power. If I guessed correctly, this should be Fengji's last gift, right? Then, without stopping, he let Apis, Zunu, and Yanji return to the contract space, and he flew to the other side of the mountain at full speed. Chapter 515, Feathered Demons. It was only after running all the way that Tangmao realized how huge this hill, which was completely condensed by earth magic, was. Even he had to fly quickly for more than 10 minutes before he could see the yellow sand all over the ground below the mountain. According to the snow girl, as long as you keep going forward from here, you can find the exit of the maze. Coming here, I got a little wind girl and 2/3 of the demon energy. It can be said that it is already a full harvest. With a portion of the liquid of time in his hand, even if he really encounters trouble, he is not panicked now. But after going down the mountain, he had to choose to walk, because at a glance, there are still many peaks here. There are also many feathered monsters living on this kind of peak, and among them there are even Nubian bastards that you must not offend once you enter the Sahara Desert. As for what lives on the nearby peaks, he is not very clear, of course. Tangmao does not want to find out clearly. But even though he was walking, when he passed by the territory of the Nubian bastard group, Tangmao found that the other party actually came to greet him hospitably. Moreover, just based on this formation, they wanted to mess with him. Just when they moved, the feathered monsters on the nearby peaks also moved. The egret sand eagle, sand guinea fowl, sand skylark and grey rock swallow plus the Nubian bastard directly filled the entire sky. Chirp chirp. The Nubian bastard monarch looked at Tangmao with anger in his eyes. After all, it suffered a great loss at the hands of this human not long ago. Chirp chirp chirp. In the tribe of the sand skylark, a big monster with strength close to that of the pseudo-monarch flew out and also screamed strangely. I don't know what it was talking about with the Nubian bastard monarch. Some of them should be hostile natural enemies, but after they gathered here, there was not a single feathered monster fighting internally, but they all looked at Tangmao aggressively. Although he had heard that the demons in the Sahara Desert might like internal fighting, or even wars between tribes, once humans stepped in, they would put aside all hatred and unite to fight against the outside world. But hearing about it and seeing it with one's own eyes are two completely different things. After all, there are not many people who can enter the Sahara Desert and walk out. Perhaps they are not as exciting as his adventure. Of course, there may be people who are deeper than him, but there is no need to think about it. I'm afraid that the other party is already dead. ZHA. At this moment, the Nubian bastard monarch suddenly cried out to the sky, and then the feathered demons that were all over the sky moved. They pulled away from each other in batches and killed towards Tangmao. Tangmao's first reaction was to run away. After all, Apis, Zunv, and Yanji had just consumed a wave and were still resting. Moreover, with so many people, unless you turn into a demon and want to kill your way out, it is almost impossible. The most important thing is that this Nubian bastard monarch seems to know how to deal with his destructive magic. There are only a few hundred of them in a batch. In this case, the magic power should be exhausted soon. So, he can only choose to escape. The six wings spread out again, and after 3 consecutive instantaneous movements, he has returned to the mountain, where Fengji was before. But looking far away, he saw that the group of feather monsters had no intention of stopping, and chased him again. There was no other way to deal with it except to escape. Fortunately, the speed provided by the wind system was fast enough. After only half an hour of flying, he had left them far behind. The overwhelming feather monsters really made people's scalps numb. The most important thing is that he didn't understand why these feather monsters would gather there. Are they all living in peace with each other? After stepping into the desert from the front, Tangmao still didn't stop. After all, he had already experienced the patience of this group of stupid birds. After flying for another half an hour, Tang Mao finally stopped. There was no other way. If he went further, he would be lost in the desert again. Although he was somewhat interested in the deep desert, he already had something to gain. Why should he be so greedy? If there was nothing, he would definitely have to try his luck. But since he already had something, there was no need to take risks. After staying for nearly an hour and making sure that no feather monsters were chasing him, Tang Mao headed towards the mountain where Fengji lived before. After he came back and checked, he was sure that there was indeed no feather monster left here. But what was more annoying was that they were guarding the only way to go. At least it was not easy to get there during the day. It was only afternoon now, and there were still several hours until the dead of night. Tang Mao immediately found a deep pit that collapsed during the previous battle with Yaling, which seemed to be a relatively hidden place. He took out the wind attribute energy stone that Fengji had turned into after cooling down and began to absorb its energy. Although Tang Mao knew that the energy contained in the stone was extremely huge the moment he picked it up, when he absorbed it into the wind galaxy, the galaxy seemed to expand instantly. He was not unfamiliar with this feeling. After all, his thunder system was promoted to the super level in this way. However, what he didn't expect was that his ice, fire, shadow and even space had been perfected for a long time and had not broken through, but it was the wind system that took the lead in crossing the high level barrier. Of course, if there is a chance to break through, he will naturally not wait foolishly for the other systems to break through together. Moreover, the wind system will have a little wind girl in the future, which may not necessarily be an advantage in speed. Perhaps the damage can also be greatly enhanced. The most important thing is that his wind system has not been an ordinary wind system since it awakened. When the sand and dust wind rolls up, the lethality is not weak at all. After noticing the expansion of the wind galaxy, he was at ease and fell into the spiritual world. As for his own safety, he didn't need to worry too much. After all, I believe that they in the contract space can sense that he is breaking through. The most important thing is that they can open the door automatically, so there is no need to worry about safety. Unless the attacker is at the Supreme Monarch level or the Emperor level, how can he be affected? The two girls can fight against the Middle Monarch, not to mention Apis. The three together are at the Great Monarch level and can fight. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 516, You Spineless Birds. A large amount of wind attribute energy continued to pour into the galaxy, and the stars of the wind system also kept hitting the barrier, like they were going berserk. After 3 hours of calm, the deep pit, where Tang Mao was suddenly blew violently, and the sand and dust rolled. Hoo 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 hoo. It felt as if Fengji was still here, but it seemed that the sand and dust were a little weaker. Boom. When the galaxy turned into a sea of stars and transformed perfectly, Tang Mao floated out of the deep pit with a huge sand and dust tornado. At this time, it seemed that, as long as he wanted, he could walk in the air even without the wings of wind. It felt like there were wind tracks paving the way under his feet. Regardless of whether this had any effect, it was a perfect B grade. Coming out of the deep pit, the sky had gradually darkened, and he did not stay here for long. The most important thing at the moment was to leave here first. But just when Tang Mao had just reached the cliff, he saw that there were still a few sandlarks wandering in the starry sky, standing guard on me. It seems that the nearest way out of the Sahara Desert is here, Tang Mao thought to himself. Then, he turned into a shadow and floated over. Although the perception of these sandlarks is very sensitive, to put it bluntly, they are only warlord level creatures after all. So what can they do with sensitivity? If I want to leave quietly, how can they find it? After Tang Mao turned into a shadow and fled over, the sandlarks didn't react at all. Of course, he didn't mean to kill them. After all, killing these few is simple, but if there are others, it will be very troublesome. Although he didn't think that this group of demons could have the same IQ as humans, it was obviously not that important to kill them or not. After successfully going down the mountain, when Tang Mao was about to rush all the way to the maze, he suddenly noticed that there was an extremely tyrannical demon coming from behind, and it was not inferior to the black snake and the powerful demon under the tyrant spirit. He noticed it, and the little skylarks also noticed it. After feeling the terrifying demonic energy, they immediately chirped. Soon, the bird calls were responded to. On the distant peaks, small black dots continued to gather towards the sky. Of course, the small black dots were not regular, and there were also larger ones, and there were even 2 big black dots. Obviously, the 2 big black dots should be the Nubian bustard monarch and the pseudo-monarch of the sand skylark group. At the moment they took off, the desert, which was already extremely dark, was completely plunged into darkness. Of course, Tang Mao, who has the shadow system, was not affected at all. He would not be visually frustrated. Moreover, with their cover, it gave him a chance to leave here. However, before he could move, he felt a heat wave coming from behind. Then, the few little feather demons in the front row turned into nothingness. At this time, the demon that came from behind also showed its true form. It seemed that the other party was also a sub-dragon, but it was different from the desert sub-dragon. Its wings were fiery red, and its strength was obviously not comparable to that of the desert sub-dragon. Although the Great Monarch and the Supreme Monarch were only one realm apart, you should know that the difference in this realm was a world of difference between the two. This guy was really domineering. Even though he also paid attention to the feather group coming from the other side, he still killed the skylarks and Nubian bastards in front of him with a wave of fire. Raw. Moreover, this guy's target seemed to be coming for him. After dealing with those feather monsters, he actually stopped moving. Stopping in the sky seemed to be searching for his position. Fortunately, his shadow system had mutated after integrating the ability of the humble craftsman. In this dark night, as long as he did not act rashly, he wanted to find him. That was simply a foolish dream. Of course, he would not stay still like this. When the feather monster group came over, wasn't it his best chance? Tang Mao thought that when they started fighting, he would rush in with all his strength. This damn place would never come again. He thought that the forbidden places of human beings were full of resources, but now it seems that this is not the case. At least in his desert adventure of more than half a month, he really did not encounter any resources. However, the fire-winged Asian dragon in the sky did not wait here for the feather monsters to arrive, but spewed out a mouthful of magma flint from his mouth. Boom. The moment the magma stone spewed out, it was directly shattered into countless small stones, and then the small stones fell like raindrops from the sky. Swish, 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 swish. Although the stone was very small, it condensed this thick flame energy. Even if the stone was inconspicuous, it still ignited a large sea of fire when it fell to the ground. Tang Mao, who was in the sea of fire, called out civilized language in his heart. But he did not rush out at the first time. There was no way. The feather monsters had already arrived. If he showed up now, it would really be over. I might not be able to handle a single fire-winged dragon, let alone these countless feathered monsters. Moreover, although the temperature of this flame is very terrifying, with the addition of Yanji's soul fire, I'm a man with 4 kinds of soul fire. Even if it is the flame ejected by the Supreme Monarch, what can it do? It's just a little hot, but it's not enough to hurt me. Chirp chirp chirp. At this time, the Nubian bastard monarch also rushed over with the feathered monsters. They were densely packed and occupied the entire sky, but they were not weak at all. There was nothing they could do. After all, this was their territory. This fire-winged dragon broke in like this. How could they survive without any reaction? Raw. But Tang Mao obviously underestimated the deterrent power of the fire-winged dragon. After it roared, another huge wave of fire flapped out from its wings. When the fire wave rushed out, the Nubian bastard monarch turned around and fled from here. ? And the hundreds of thousands of feathered monsters also scattered everywhere in an instant. Damn, this group of spineless birds. Tang Mao originally wanted to take advantage of the battle between the birds and the dragon to run away, but he didn't expect that they were scared away by a wave of fire before they even started fighting. Are hundreds of thousands of feather monsters just wasted like this? Raw. After driving away the Nubian bastard monarch and its group of feather monsters, the fire-winged dragon sprayed pillars of fire everywhere again, as if it had determined that Tang Mao was here. Chapter 517, Supreme Monarch. There was indeed nothing wrong in the sea of fire at the beginning, but if it continues to be bombarded like this, it will definitely not work. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Then, a gust of wind blew, and a huge sandstorm rolled up. The flames that had just been ejected were blown away by the sandstorm. After seeing the sandstorm, the fire-winged dragon rushed over. Its huge head seemed not to be afraid of being cut by the wind blade. With a bang, it directly pushed into the wind roll. Then, a wave of fire sprayed out in the wind. Looking at this dragon, Tangmao shouted, "Damn it." Then he hurriedly dispersed the gust of wind. At the moment when the fire wave hit, layers of ice walls condensed in front of him. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The fire wave was obviously more terrifying than imagined. The moment it descended, it melted 3 layers of defense. The remaining 2 layers of ice walls were also constantly disintegrating. Just when the fire wave broke through another layer of ice wall, Tangmao suddenly felt cold, and a chilling feeling spread all around. Ice swirl, ice dragon halberd. Seeing that the last layer of ice wall was about to melt, Tangmao's ice attribute power instantly increased by unknown times. Then an ice halberd emerged in his hand. After the fire wave dissolved the ice wall, the ice halberd rushed up and threw it out. At the moment of throwing it out, the fire wave directly condensed into an ice column, and the ice dragon halberd directly penetrated it and rushed towards the fire-winged dragon. The fire-winged dragon looked at the ice attribute power that Tangmao burst out and seemed a little confused. This obviously shouldn't be the power that a high-level ice mage can have. Of course, it would not take such an attack seriously. When the ice halberd penetrated in front of it, it was crushed into pieces by the fire-winged dragon's claws. Such a powerful attack was resolved just like that, and it was crushed directly by the most direct and domineering means. It is indeed worthy of being a dragon of the supreme level. Roar. After another dragon roar, the fire-winged dragon rushed down, and the huge claws grabbed Tangmao. Wind wings strangle. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The high-level 3rd level wind attribute magic, after entering the wind super level, the control power plus the special wind attribute, in Tangmao's opinion, should be enough to trap the opponent for a while. At least it should allow him to draw a Thunderstar Palace, right? Wrapping the huge body, Tangmao was about to draw the Star Palace, but in just a blink of an eye, the fire-winged dragon broke through the sandstorm, and even the fiery red dragon scales did not suffer any damage at all. Skyflame Funeral Fiery Hellfire Dragon. 4 kinds of soul fire appeared around him at the same time, and then in the constellation, a sea of fire soared into the sky, and one of the fire dragons rose out. The magic fire dragon formed by the fusion of the 4 fires was no smaller than the fire-winged dragon. The fire dragon rushed straight towards the fire-winged dragon, but its speed did not slow down at all. Instead, its momentum gave Tangmao a more ferocious feeling. Boom. The next moment, the fire-winged dragon actually directly dispersed the fire dragon and the sea of fire. As for the flames burning on it, not only did it not cause any fatal damage to it, but it was absorbed by it? Tangmao was completely dumbfounded. But fortunately, the next moment, its body was once again ignited with 4 color flames, and even the bright and beautiful dragon scales were charred, and he was relieved. At least, this fire-winged dragon is not really invincible. After being burned by the flames, the fire-winged dragon changed from descending to flying. There was no way. The fire wave was really a bit turbulent, even beyond its imagination. After Tangmao got a breather, he asked Apis, Snow Girl and Yanji, who was fused into his body, to help. If he wanted to cause real damage to the opponent, it seemed that he had to use his own lightning magic. The fire damage was not insufficient, but this guy was also a fire element, and the immunity to fire element was stronger than other element. The moment Apis appeared, the fire-winged dragon, who had just digested the soul fire of his body, paused slightly, and when Yanji and Snow Girl appeared, the original attitude of the fire-winged dragon, that despised everything, also changed greatly. Roar, 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 roar. Then, it roared like a dragon. The moment the dragon roar spread, Tangmao really felt what it meant to be deafening! Exclamation mark. Similarly, the 3 Apis also looked uncomfortable. and the feather monsters that had been fleeing for a long time in the distance, even though they were nearly 100 miles apart, were still shocked and crashed at the moment when the dragon roared through the sky. Fuck. After Tangmao roared, he described the thunder constellation again. Obviously, the Star Palace just now was not connected, and he failed. This dragon roar directly broke his control. Of course, this was mainly because Tangmao was not prepared. This sub-dragon still had such an ability. Otherwise, how could he, who had strong mental power, fail to connect magic with a dragon roar? Although Yanji and Zunu were also dizzy from the shock, they still rolled up the elemental power at the first time. Apis wanted to petrify the fire-winged sub-dragon at the same time as the two of them started, but unfortunately, when the earth element just appeared on the body of the fire-winged sub-dragon, it was directly shattered by its flames. As for the attacks of Yanji and Zunu, they also used powerful fire waves to fight against each other. The power of the Supreme Monarch was such that, even if it was a one-on-to confrontation, he still had enough of an upper hand. Fortunately, the ones who were confronting each other were Snow Girl and Flame Princess. One of them was good at countering fire, and the other was a favorite of the fire system. Although they were also a little embarrassed by the burns, they were not very serious. After the fire-winged dragon took on the attacks of the three of them, another wave of scorching hot fire spurted out. The three of them each used their own defensive means, but just as they resisted the fire wave, they saw that the fire-winged dragon was no longer in the sky? The next moment, it appeared next to the Snow Girl, and slapped its thin body with one claw, sending the Snow Girl flying with one blow. Then, it flicked its tail, and Flame Princess could not avoid it. Apis was even more unlucky, because what he faced was the dragon's breath. Although Apis's bloodline was above it, the gap in strength was really a fatal flaw. If her power had not been restricted, perhaps Apis could have fought it, but now because of the contract, her strength was only at the level of mid-level monarch. Facing the Supreme Monarch, she really had no power to fight back. Chapter 518, The Scalding Fire Waves and the Destructive Thunder Halberd. After Apis, Snow Girl, and Flame Princess were all blown away, the fire-winged dragon rushed straight towards Apis. It had no intention of killing Snow Girl or Flame Princess, but for some reason, it just wanted to kill Apis. Although Apis was injured, he was at least one of the heirs of Medusa's orthodox bloodline. Naturally, he would not be completely powerless to fight back, because of such a blow. After the charming eyes changed, a huge snake shadow emerged behind Apis. Then, the energy of the earth element gathered into a huge python. After the python was successfully condensed, Apis directed it to rush towards the fire-winged dragon. Facing the rushing gravel python, the fire-winged dragon still had no intention of retreating. At the same time, Snow Girl and Flame Princess also burst out with powerful elemental power. It seemed that it took time to absorb the natural element nearby. The time it was bounced back, but it burst out with more powerful elemental power. Then, ice and fire merged into one, and rushed straight towards the fire-winged dragon. Facing the attack from both sides, the fire-winged dragon stopped, and then wrapped its huge body with its wings. When the two energies from the front and back hit it, the fire-winged dragon's wings suddenly opened, and the same two waves of fire spread out in both directions. Boom. The violent elemental energy exploded, and the dust flew up in an instant. The yellow sand where the fire-winged dragon was located even sank directly, but it never showed any sign of being shaken. On the contrary, the Snow Girl, the Flame Princess, and Apis were blown away one by one, covered in blood. Raw. Although the fire-winged dragon was not injured, it was obviously provoked by the majesty of the Supreme Monarch. It actually let two elemental pets that had just been promoted to the monarch, and a Medusa that had not grown up, drag it for so long. How could it not be angry? The wave of fire had just dissipated, and another violent wave of fire dispersed to three sides. One of them was naturally used to deal with Tangmao, but Tangmao's Star Palace was also completed at this time. The thunder halberd was hanging in the sky, and the violent thunder sounded continuously. At the same time when the fire wave rushed over, Tangmao put Apis, Zunu and Yanji into the contract space at the same time. This time it was completely forced, and even the three of them didn't notice that they had been pulled back by the sudden appearance of the contract door. However, the three of them were fine, but he had to face the fire wave head on. Boom. The moment the fire wave rushed towards Tangmao, the thunder halberd also fell on the body of the fire-winged Asian dragon. For a moment, two destructive elemental forces exploded in this desert. The yellow sand in the area of dozens of miles was also blown all over the sky by the elemental waves. Asshole, what are you doing? Let me out. If you die, we can't survive either. Ring. Tangmao relied on the 4 soul fires in the demon system to resist the fire wave. Although it was not fatal, at the moment when the flames hit him, he still felt burnt on the outside and tender on the inside. Of course, as a fire demon king, he would not die in the fire, but the pain came from the inside of his body. He endured the burning heat on his body and looked at the fire-winged dragon. Compared with his own miserable life, it didn't seem to be much better. The dragon scales all over his body fell to the ground because of the tyranny of the thunder halberd. The huge body was covered with huge blood beads, and the sand pit was covered with its blood and became a pool of blood. But the fire-winged dragon was not a desert dragon. With its powerful demonic power, it still managed to hold on. But at this moment, the fire-winged dragon had obviously lost its previous majesty and looked at Tangmao with full vigilance. Obviously, Tangmao's slap hit its dragon face. Even the dragon scales with strong defensive power were useless in front of this thunder. Fortunately, Tangmao was only a superclass level 1 mage. If he were to upgrade to a higher level, it would not be as simple as losing some scales and bleeding. Roar. The fire-winged dragon looked at Tangmao angrily. His eyes were about to spit fire, but this roar was obviously a little powerless compared to the previous one. After a roar, the fire-winged dragon's injured wings moved slightly and took off again. Although Tangmao's body was burning hot, he also depicted the constellation of wind attributes, with 6 wings spread out, and a dust tornado rose from the ground. Lose the battle, but not the battle. Moreover, he was ready. If this damn thing wanted to continue, then he was ready to become a demon. It was not worth it for the other party, a supreme monarch dragon, to use the demon system. In fact, for him, staying alive is the most important thing now. The fire-winged dragon looked at Tangmao, who was rising into the sky, and then looked at the dark clouds in the sky that were constantly flashing with lightning. For a moment, he was really a little weak. If the terrifying thunder of destruction just now hit him again, he would be really finished. But he wanted to try again. Tangmao could not be fine after taking the complete impact of his fire wave. Wind wings strangle. When the fire-winged dragon did not move, Tangmao took the lead and the wind constellation was formed in an instant. Then, a sandstorm was rolled around him. Roar. Because the fire-winged dragon was injured, this time the cutting caused a large area of fracture on its huge body. Obviously, without the dragon scales, it was just like an ordinary demon monarch, and its body was not as tough as imagined. However, it was injured, but it was still harmless. The fire-winged dragon burned the windroll with a wave of fire and sprayed another pillar of fire at Tangmao. Space rift. Tangmao's fire system and ice system were unusable at the moment because Yanji and Zunu were suppressing the flames of the fire-winged dragon to prevent his body from collapsing. The shadow system had no output advantage in the air, let alone the summoning system, so the space system was the only one he could use. With his strong mental power and skilled control, Tangmao forcibly absorbed the impact of a wave of fire. But even the space magic of the dimension has a limit to its endurance. Just like the principle of chaos magic, it is not that it is really okay to break through the space and absorb it. When the power reaches a certain degree of destruction, even if the space rift can absorb it, it can still break through the space and blast out again. If it was the same realm, Tangmao would naturally be confident of solving it, but the gap between him and the opponent was too big, and he himself had no confidence. But fortunately, he still managed to resolve it. Of course, this was also fortunate that it was not the same as before it was injured. Chapter 519. Even though he was seriously injured, he still took advantage. Seeing that his wave of fire was blocked, the fire-winged dragon had no intention of fighting again, and turned around and fled from here. Obviously, it panicked. Tangmao was too abnormal. After being hit by his full force, he was still like nothing happened, and he could even block his attack. It was really BT. With a flap of its huge wings, it flew away from here. In this regard, Tang Mao did not make any move. He also wanted to eliminate future troubles, but he had to have the strength to do so. At present, he was only suppressed by the elemental abilities of Yanji and Zunu, which barely allowed him to continue fighting. Otherwise, the scorching temperature of this body would almost make it impossible for him to concentrate on depicting the constellations. When the fire-winged overlord left, he hurriedly took out the healing medicine he had snatched from Ashiruya before, and poured it into his stomach. The magic medicine, the protection of Yanji and the 4 soul fires, and the continuous injection of ice magic energy by the snow girl, the burning pain slowly eased. However, at this time, even if he was panting, he felt hot. Because the fire-winged dragon had left, the contract door had been opened, and Apis ran out alone. "You are really stupid enough to resist the full force of the fire-winged dragon alone," Apis said with a mocking face. While speaking, she slowly helped Tang Mao, who was lying on the ground, up. Of course, when helping him up, Apis still wrapped her palm with the power of the earth element. But even so, she could still feel the hot temperature emanating from his body. It was as if what she helped up was a rolling heat wave inside a volcano! Exclamation mark. Cough cough. Tang Mao, who was helped up, coughed a few times with some suffocation, and the saliva he coughed out was all magma fire. It was indeed the 4 soul fires that protected the heart meridian, and the demon system was constantly recovering. Otherwise, he would be really finished now. As for Yanji and Zunu, it is obvious that they are now inseparable. At least they have to clear the fire waves in Tang Mao's body, otherwise, he will still be in danger. The inside of the body is constantly recovering, but it is also constantly being destroyed by the fire waves. The pain brought by these two struggles is really unbearable. However, he never made a fuss. There was no way, he really didn't dare. After all, on the distant mountain, there was still a group of feathered monsters headed by the Nubian bastard monarch waiting to mess with him. Apis also knew that he couldn't stay here for long. After all, the fire-winged dragon had already escaped. Without its deterrence, no one was sure whether the group of stupid birds would take advantage of the fire. However, it would not be wise to take Tang Mao away now. As long as they left, the group of feathered monsters would definitely come to investigate, and even with the terrifying high temperature he emitted, it was impossible to shake them off. There was no way. She could only choose to be vigilant against this group of birds while watching Tang Mao's situation. The temperature of the hot magma continued to radiate upwards into the sky. With the remaining flame energy nearby and the burning of the scorching sun, this place was almost turning into a sea of fire. Even Apis had to use his earth element to wrap himself up to barely withstand the burning sensation. Fortunately, with the full suppression of the 2 elemental elves, Zio, Yanji and Zunu, the waves of fire in his body gradually dissipated. However, they both fainted due to excessive consumption and the damage from the previous battle. Tang Mao's ice and fire magic energy was also consumed and dried up. Now he urgently needed to find a place to repair. Moreover, this time, he was afraid that he would not be able to try to leave here for 4 or 5 days. There was no way that Yanji and Zunu were overconsumed and began to rest and recover. If he went to attack the flock of birds at this time, he would definitely have to borrow their power, but that would not be borrowing power, but consuming their vitality. Tang Mao would naturally not do such a thing. Even because of this, he can't turn into a demon now, otherwise it's the same reason. Moreover, after turning into a demon, he can hardly control whether to absorb the energy of Yanji and Zunu. Let's go, leave here. Tang Mao stood up reluctantly. Although there was still the burning of the fire wave in his body, it was no longer a big deal. Apis hesitated for a while before saying, "Are you sure you can leave now?" "Yes, if you stay, those miscellaneous birds may not be able to hold back." Tang Mao nodded. The reason why they haven't attacked until now is nothing more than because they were shocked by the battle with the fire-winged dragon just now. Otherwise, if they knew his state, the other party would definitely not give up. After Apis confirmed that Tang Mao was fine, she carried Tang Mao and fled to a distance. She also mastered the earth magic, so her movement speed was not slow. And in this barren desert, the so-called safe place is naturally the nest of Fengji. Although it is said that there may be more demons coming after the fire-winged dragon, what choice do they have now? Tangmao was a little dissatisfied with being carried in the air and looked at Apis and said, "Don't you know how to be gentle to me?" Apis looked at Tangmao with some doubts, as if she didn't understand what he meant. Tangmao said dissatisfiedly, "Can't you carry me on your back?" Lying on her soft little body is obviously much better than this. Apis is also very clear about Tangmao's thoughts, so she won't agree to this. Carrying Tangmao, can you still travel with peace of mind? Moreover, she is really convinced. Even in this state, he still wants to take advantage of her. It must be because of the contract, otherwise, Apis must take revenge now. Seeing that she ignored him, Tangmao had to continue to talk nonsense. There was no way, now he had nothing to do except his mouth. "If you keep talking, I will take you to the nest of those birds." Apis turned back and said unbearably, "Let's go, I just want to roast a few birds." Tangmao naturally didn't believe this, and said with indifference, "You." Apis was almost furious, this damn man was really too much. Moreover, she must have been out of her mind just now, otherwise why would she care about his life or death? Question mark? Of course, Apis quickly gave herself an explanation. That is, she couldn't let Tangmao die, otherwise she wouldn't be able to live. This reason was obviously valid. After all, this was the unfairness of the contract to the demons. However, no matter how angry she was, in order not to be blown up by her anger, she still carried Tangmao's big head on her back. Chapter 520 Cultivation. If you're touching me, I'll really drag you to fight. You bastard, aren't you going to die? You're going to die soon. I will definitely make you suffer from the pain of being eaten by thousands of snakes. On the way to the place where they were promoted before, Apis was almost cursing non-stop, but no matter what she said, Tangmao ignored her. Occasionally, when he saw that the little snake girl was about to explode, he would say, "I didn't mean it," very insincerely. Apis naturally didn't want to die, otherwise, how could she have carried him and escaped? However, she was almost mad to death along the way. She once doubted that she was carrying a person? Question mark? Although she was the same as a human, and because of her bloodline, she was still a little beauty, but she was also a contracted beast. What was this bastard thinking? He didn't even let go of her snake girl. "Why are you looking at me like that? Why don't you quickly set up the tent? Do you want me, the wounded, to blow the cold sand?" Tangmao just sat down and looked like he was in trouble. "Apis," he said, "I only let you drive because you have no arms or legs!" Exclamation mark. Of course, Tangmao actually had no major problems, except that his magic power was overconsumed. Even if there was still some residual fire under the suppression of the 4 soul fires, it would not have any actual harm to him. But being able to command this charming little snake girl to do this, and that always gave him a strange sense of accomplishment. After the tent was set up, the two of them simply ate some dry food, and then Tangmao pulled Apis into the tent to reduce the fire. Moreover, Tangmao, who had just been dying and had no arms or legs, was now full of energy. Apis's mouth was sour. But there was still no effect? Question mark? "Are you really a human?" Apis muttered in disbelief, staring at it with his eyes. "Of course I'm a human, but it's like this every day, so it's inevitable that I lack interest. Why not?" Tangmao raised his eyebrows and stared at the small hills and said meaningfully, "Don't go too far." Although Apis didn't care about these, she couldn't accept being eaten like this. After all, in this way, she had to suffer so much because of its state. How can this be too much? You don't understand its beauty. Believe me, you will love it just once. Tangmao continued. "You are really not a human being." Then continue. Seeing that she didn't agree, Tangmao had to continue lying down with his hands on his head. There was no way. The temperature of the flame was still there. Although it was not very painful, it would definitely not be good for him if it accumulated for a long time. Apis hummed in dissatisfaction and continued to work hard. The night was long. Although it was a barren desert, it was not so difficult because of Apis's company. Sure enough, the contract with Apis was a very great idea. Not only could he fight, but he didn't have to spend resources to cultivate it. The most important thing was that he could accompany him regardless of wind and rain. Of course, he had to thank Queen Mother Medusa for creating such an excellent contract beast for him. Otherwise, what could he do? Even if he had this idea, like the Snow Girl and the Flame Princess, this kind of care would not be said to be something that the two little elemental elves would not do. Even if they could not do it themselves. After all, they were all raised by me as my daughter. Thinking of this, the contract with Apathy was super worth it in every way. Of course, he didn't keep producing the fire. After all, the fire had been in his body for a long time. How could it be solved at one time? This kind of thing still had to be done slowly, unless Apathy could sacrifice his ego, in which case, he might recover faster. However, looking at the current situation, it seems not easy. In the next few days, Tangmao was in this deep pit. Because there is still the breath of thunder element destruction here. Even if there are feathered monsters flying by here, they don't pay attention to this place at all. After a few days of recovery, Tangmao has recovered to his peak state, but Zunu and Yanji have only recovered half of their magic power. Obviously, they paid a lot, and there is no suitable food here to replenish their strength, so they will not recover so quickly. Therefore, he can only choose to continue hiding here. As for the escape of the fire-winged dragon, no other demons came here to harass. Apis is actually full of vigilance every day, because in her opinion, they have completely provoked the demon empire of the Sahara Desert, and the other party will not give up. Moreover, the fire-winged dragon is not considered to be the strongest demon in the Sahara Desert. Tangmao also knows that, if the Sahara can be called one of the top 3 forbidden areas in the world, then there must be more terrifying existence here. But there was no way. If he wanted to go to the maze and leave the Sahara, he had to face the hundreds of thousands of feathered demons. He had no idea what kind of demon tribes or even tribes would appear after he passed through their territory. Therefore, since Zunu and Yanji had not completely recovered their peak strength, he naturally could not act rashly. Apis also knew Tangmao's thoughts, so even though she wanted to leave this ghost place immediately, she still endured it. After all, not to mention the flock of birds in front, the road behind was full of unknowns, and it was a bit hasty to leave if she was not in the best condition. However, after these battles, Apis also had some confidence in Tangmao. At least she was no longer worried about being hunted by her eldest sister and second sister. She also believed that Tangmao really had a bigger trump card. These days, she herself felt that perhaps there was nothing wrong with being a contracted beast. At least, she could survive. Of course, it was just a little humiliating. He was supposed to be a slave to his human, but he ended up being a plaything. A woo. That day, just as the sky was getting cooler, Tangmao suddenly heard a wolf howl coming from the hill above. Moreover, listening to the rumbling sound of animal hooves, it seemed that there were quite a few demons coming here. Roar. Moo. Immediately after the wolf howl, all kinds of strange cries were heard. Apis looked at Tangmao and said, "What should we do?" "It's okay. I'll use space magic to isolate our breath, and these little demons won't notice it." Tangmao responded softly. "Hooah!" Boom. Just as he finished speaking, a wave of fire hit the wall of space. Chapter 521 The Scum of Humanity. Fortunately, he noticed it in time. At the moment when the fire wave hit, he cast ice magic. Under the protection of the space wall and ice magic, he barely blocked the impact of the fire wave. Tangmao immediately took Apis and turned into a sand tornado and rushed up. The moment he just appeared, he saw a group of small demons such as Baboon Sand Demon and Who Sand Wolf surrounded here, and in the air was the fire-winged sub-dragon that was severely injured by him before. However, judging from its breath, it should not have fully recovered yet. Tangmao didn't understand. How dare this dog thing? It came to the door before it was fully recovered. The tornado spread, and the small demons nearby were cut into pieces the moment they were rolled in. Obviously, his high-level wind magic is not without damage, but the objects released are almost all higher-level existences, so it gives people a feeling of scraping. Think about it. After all, not all high-level magic can cause terrible damage to monarch-level demons. That is to say, his thunder system is special, so it has such a simple and crude and extremely explosive effect. The moment Tangmao appeared, the fire-winged dragon obviously lost its previous domineering attitude and became alert instead. Tang Mao stared at the fire-winged dragon as soon as he came out. After all, these little demons can be solved with a few high-level magics, but the big fire dragon in front of him is a real trouble. Even if it is not in its peak state, it has been shocked once. I believe that, if I describe the Star Palace this time, it will definitely try its best to stop it. However, regardless of whether it is so, Tang Mao still used his domain ability at the same time as he appeared, and as long as it was a thunder element, it was forcibly absorbed by him. No wonder you can beat the fire-winged dragon into this state. Young people have something. Just when Tang Mao was accumulating power to perform the purple thunder domain, a human voice suddenly came from below. Question mark? And it was his international language? Question mark? Tang Mao and Apis in his arms looked over at the same time and saw that there was a human among the demons everywhere. Because of his lush hair, I don't know what country he is from. However, it is still rare to see a human appear in a group of demons. Of course, it is not impossible. There are also some large demon tribes that accommodate some humans. It's just that I have only heard about it before, but I didn't expect to see it with my own eyes. Tang Mao didn't speak, because this kind of human can no longer be called a human, but what puzzled him was that this person's strength was not weak, and his cultivation was obviously stronger than his. Why, it's strange why a human like me would appear in a group of demons. The savage-like guy continued. I'm not interested in knowing why you are a slave to demons. I just want to know what you want to do by bringing this group of bastards to surround me. At this time, Tang Mao also understood why he was discovered, even though he set up space magic. Obviously, it was not a demon who discovered him, but a human. He should also have a space system. Arrogant Dan Fang Jr., don't be so ungrateful. I came here just to give you a way out. The savage looked at Tang Mao and said in a light voice. So, what do you want from me? Tang Mao looked at the savage in front of him with some confusion. He was really curious about what treasures he had that were worth the other party's attention. Haha. It seems that you are also a smart person. As he said, the savage said, leave the little Fengji you took in here, and your contract pet, and I will let you leave the Sahara Desert safely. Otherwise, you will never have peace in your life. Want my contract pet? Tang Mao looked playful, and then looked at Apis and said, do you think I can agree to him? If you dare to leave me here, I will not let you go even if I die. Apis looked alert, and her little hands hugged Tang Mao tightly, as if she was really afraid that he would leave her here. She felt disgusting thoughts from the human below. It was as if Tang Mao's thoughts were the same every day. Tang Mao's mouth twitched slightly. He was just talking casually. He didn't expect that this little snake girl still didn't trust him so much until now. Question mark? It was a bit sad, but he didn't explain it. Instead, he looked at the savage and said, I want to know, what do you want Fengji or these elemental pets for? Of course, I want to dedicate them to the master of this desert Emperor Sahara. In the eyes of the savage, Tang Mao was actually a dead man. The reason why he didn't do anything was simply because if he died, these contracted pets would also die. Moreover, the most important thing was that he was not sure whether Fengji was also contracted. Of course, Apis was just what he wanted. After all, he hadn't felt the happiness of a man for many years. It's also a demon. Why does it want elemental pets? Tang Mao continued. HMPH. Humans are inferior creatures after all, so it's okay to tell you. The savage seemed to be very contemptuous, and his words were full of disdain for humans. Obviously, he had forgotten that he was also a human being. The Sahara Emperor himself is the incarnation of an element, but he is not the darling of the element. The reason he can cultivate to his current level is because of the elemental pets he once devoured. The savage said, seemingly full of admiration, and then said, it's a pity that Fengji was destroyed by my companion Devin with the resentment collected from the world, which also caused her power to mutate horribly, and finally severely damage the Sahara Emperor. Otherwise, how would you have the chance to get little Fengji? So the Desert Emperor here is a cripple. Tang Mao grasped the key point and said. The savage was furious when he heard this and roared, how dare you? However, I'm very curious. It is clear that Fengji is already powerless. How come you, a huge demon empire, can't take it down? Humph, you don't understand. Human, hand over your contract pet now, and I will spare your life. Otherwise. The savage obviously didn't want to continue talking. Obviously, the mutated Fengji seemed to have increased in strength by many times. The reason why she was suppressed by the fire-winged ancient dragon that day should be because when she gained power, she also destroyed its god-given genes, right? And I just happened to run into it. Otherwise, you, a scumbag who is neither human nor demon, dare to bark at me? If you want my contracted pet, it depends on your strength. Although he didn't know why the other party wanted an elemental pet, at least he knew that the current Sahara Demon Empire should have been severely damaged in the battle with the mutated Fengji. He was naturally not afraid of the half-crippled fire-winged Asian dragon in front of him, plus a super-class magician. As for these densely packed little demons, sorry, they are totally not in Tang Mao's eyes. Even without using super-class magic, it is enough to cause absolute destruction to this half-crippled scum. The savage really didn't expect that Tang Mao would choose hard steel in the end. Question mark? Okay. It seemed that he had made a stupid decision and wasted a lot of time spitting. In the end, he still had to fight to get his energy. He didn't know what to say. Then he also jumped up and 6 wings appeared behind him. After seeing that the other party was also a wind mage, Tang Mao frowned slightly. Obviously, this person must die. I'm afraid that it's not just the Demon Emperor here who is interested in Fengji, and this dog-like scum is also interested in his own Fengji, right? But Tang Mao didn't understand why this person didn't leave with a super-class mage named Davin at that time, but stayed here. How did he join the Demon Empire? I haven't made a move for a long time, but today I'll make an exception for you. After the savage finished speaking, the constellations of wind attributes began to splice, as if he was ready to release superclass magic right away. Tang Mao naturally would not do as he wished, and immediately a thunderbolt blasted over, and at the same time, the thunder domain was fully exerted. Boom. However, when the thunderbolt fell on the opponent's head, it was blocked by the powerful force of space. The fire-winged dragon also spit out waves of fire, and bombarded Tang Mao. Tang Mao had no choice but to take uppers to hide on the ground, and then summoned Yanji to help deal with the debris on the ground, and he rushed to the sky again. Annihilation of Wind Thousand Blades. Chapter 522 Delay. The moment he just took off, he was greeted by superclass wind magic, and powerful and sharp wind blades rushed towards him. There was no chance to hide now, so he quickly used the ice wall to wrap his body. Bang bang bang. Although it was a sharp soul wind blade, it was not difficult to block it, because of the fusion of the snow girl. This is why he chose to fly up, even though he knew he would be cut by the wind blade. After all, it is easy to protect yourself, but it is not easy to protect Yanji and Apis. The wind blades kept cutting through the ice wall, but the ice wall seemed to have the ability to heal itself, and it kept thickening. Seeing this, the fire-winged dragon next to him also opened its mouth wide, and a wave of fire rushed out. Originally, it was no problem to resist the wind blade, but with the addition of this fire wave, even with the fusion of the snow girl, it was difficult to resist. There was no way. His ice system was only high level. Pa. Boom. The moment the ice wall shattered, he moved and jumped behind them in an instant, and then Tang Mao quickly completed the constellation link of the lightning system. Silent thunder deathlight lightning beam. Swish, a beam of lightning rushed straight towards the savage. It was very troublesome for Tang Mao to deal with the opponent alone, let alone 1 against 2. The strength of this savage must be at least the second level of the dual system super level. After all, his wind attributed super level magic was released too quickly, so Tang Mao wanted to get rid of him first. Otherwise, if he dealt with 2 like this, he would definitely be the one who lost in the end. When the savage saw the lightning beam rushing over with a lightning speed, he hurriedly used the high level space magic, the space wall, to resist the impact. But how could Tang Mao's thunder of destruction be resisted by high level defensive magic? The thunder beam directly smashed the thin wall of space, but just when it was about to bombard the savage, the fire-winged dragon suddenly appeared behind him, and its huge wings wrapped around the tiny him. Although the bombing power of the thunder beam was not as strong as the power of the thunder halberd, it still injured it. And this did not end there. After numbing its wings, Tang Mao drew a thunder constellation. Explode. Boom boom. Then the remaining energy of the thunder beam began to cause the thunderbolts in the thunder domain to fall continuously. The fire-winged dragon, which was originally able to resist, fell directly with its wings full of injuries after being bombarded repeatedly. Of course, when it reached midair, it flapped its wings again. And the savage who was originally protected had already escaped to the ground using instant movement. However, before he could make another move, Apis suddenly appeared around him and used mind control on him. The savage's mental power was not bad either, and he reacted immediately, and then he rushed to the herd. However, what shocked him was that the nearly 10,000 demons had been cremated by Yanji for more than half. However, seeing this, his eyes were full of excitement. It seemed that he was looking forward to the future? It is worthy of being an elemental pet. Not only can it combine with the summoner to enhance its strength, but it is also so powerful alone. After a wild laugh, the savage connected the door of the contract summoning. The next moment, a huge body rushed out of it. This huge demon turned out to be a Dark Knight Fierce Tiger! It is also a tiger demon with dark attributes, but its bloodline is better than Shine and White Tiger. It is also the top existence among tiger demons. And the strength of this tiger seems to have reached the monarch level. It is still the peak of the primary monarch, belonging to the advanced stage. Go and take down that little elemental pet, don't hurt its life. The savage could also see that, although Yanji slaughtered the little demon very easily, it was clear that its strength had not yet recovered. Even if Yanji was at her peak, Dark Knight Fierce Tiger had the strength to fight, not to mention the current Yanji. After the Dark Knight Fierce Tiger roared, he rushed straight to Yanji, and he blocked Apis. Little beauty, you have the bloodline of the dignified Medusa. Following such a kid, wouldn't it be a waste of yourself? Why don't you be my contract pet? Although he couldn't take down Apis, he could still delay it with his strength. Apis has always been pent up with anger for this face. Tangmao had no choice, but she could kill the savage in front of her. After her eyes changed, her figure flashed and rushed towards the savage, but the other party obviously had no intention of fighting with her. After all, it was a pure Medusa bloodline. Even if the contract lowered the strength, it was not something he could deal with. With the wind and space systems, he almost easily dodged Apis's attack. As for Apis's mind control, it was useless, because the last system of this savage was the mind system. Unfortunately, Tangmao's mental power was so abnormal that he had no way to interfere with him, but he still had the ability to defend. The resources in the Sahara Desert are really rich, but no one knows how this human can thrive in the demon world. He can have the current strength, not because of talent, but because of being a slave. Of course, no one knows whether he really wants to stay in such a desolate place for a lifetime. As for Tangmao, without the harassment of the savages, although he still has no absolute victory over the fire-winged dragon, he will obviously not be seriously injured by it. High-level magics of the thunder, wind, ice, and fire systems were thrown out one after another, and the fire-winged dragon was also constantly spraying fire waves. One person and one demon, dodging each other's attacks while bombing each other, and for a moment, they really felt that they were evenly matched. Being able to fight a supreme monarch on equal terms, he would obviously have something to brag about when he returned. However, he had to go back. The reason why the fire-winged dragon didn't fight was that he was afraid of his super-level thunder. It was like deliberately delaying time. But what puzzled Tangmao was that, in the current situation, if they dragged on, once Yanji finished the battle, they would have almost no advantage. So why did they drag them? The battle was dragged on unconsciously. Boom. The battle on Yanji's side was obviously the fastest to end. Although these scattered little demons were extremely powerful for ordinary mid-level mages, they were just a number for Queen Yanji. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 523 The Big Demon is Coming. Yanji solved the little demon, but just when she was about to help, the Dark Knight Tiger that had disappeared before suddenly appeared. Sure. The sharp tiger claws, with thick dark energy, tore at Yanji's back. Fortunately, Yanji was possessed by fire, so she was not eroded by the dark energy. However, although the flame body defense was very fast, it was still scratched on the back. Ring. Queen Yanji was obviously very angry. This hiding thing, I thought it had run away. After all, I killed so many little demons, and I didn't see the other party moving out. I didn't expect that it was always there, just wanting to sneak attack. Although she avoided the heavy blow, there were still claw marks on her white and smooth back. Immediately, Yanji turned around and sprayed a thick flame. The flames were like a tornado, erupting straight at the Dark Knight Tiger, but just when it was about to burn it, the Dark Knight Tiger once again turned into a huge black shadow and disappeared into the yellow sand. Ring. Yanji was so angry about this that she roared. Since she was born, she has never suffered such a big injustice. Immediately, the 3 soul fires ignited on her delicate hands, and then Yanji's full strength fire wave directly blasted into the yellow sand. After the fire wave rushed into the yellow sand, it was like a sea of fire within several miles or even dozens of miles. Apis looked at the little Yanji who was furious there, and she couldn't solve it quickly here. After seeing that the fire-winged Asian dragon in the sky was also delaying, she felt that it was not good. At the same time, a very strong demonic aura had appeared within her perception range. Not good, they have helpers. Immediately, Apis told Tangmao telepathically. Tangmao, who was stalling with the fire-winged dragon, actually also felt a strong demonic energy rushing here. Obviously, the opponent was not really disabled. Or, some of the big demons have recovered, but they are just afraid that he will escape, so they come to entangle? But what is certain is that the demons that come should be at the same level of strength as the fire-winged dragon, not a stronger existence. As long as it is not the emperor level, Tangmao is really not panicked. Moreover, when dealing with the fire-winged dragon, Tangmao has absorbed his last time liquid into the demon bead. Since the opponent has to come to die, he naturally doesn't mind killing them all. Raw. Just when Tangmao was thinking about demonization, the fire-winged dragon also took the opportunity to rush over, as if he wanted to take the opportunity to tear him apart. Purple Thunder Domain. But just when the fire-winged dragon approached, the Thundernet suddenly appeared. This was when Tangmao was fighting with it before. He had already started to arrange it, but it only harassed, but did not fight hard, so it didn't notice it. The fire-winged dragon directly crashed into the electric net, and then the thunderbolts were released by hundreds or even thousands of people, bombarding the body of the fire-winged dragon. His thunder system was originally powerful, and the damage of the intermediate magic was the same as that of the higher level magic. After all, the star has been strengthened to the intermediate level of level 6. In other words, the bombardment released by this field is the bombardment of higher level magic. A higher level magic may not cause any damage to the fire-winged dragon, but the bombardment of hundreds of higher level magic at the same time, the power may not be comparable to that of the super level magic. Boom. A huge thunderbolt exploded on the body of the fire-winged dragon, and the wound that had just healed was broken again. For a while, the blood beads like a rainstorm fell clattering. Roar. The fire-winged dragon roared in pain, and his eyes were full of irritability. After all, the human in front of him had already caused it 2 serious injuries. It didn't expect that, even if it wasn't super class magic, it could actually exert such power. But even though it was about to go crazy, the fire-winged dragon didn't mean to fight desperately in the end, but turned around and flew away. Seeing the fire-winged dragon running away, Tangmao didn't chase it. After all, the little girl below seemed to have suffered a great injustice. Before dealing with the demon that was coming quickly, he really needed to solve the problem in front of him first. Even if it appeared next to Yanji, the little girl looked aggrieved when she saw Tangmao coming over. Ring ring. Little Yanji seemed to be saying that she wanted Tangmao to kill this damn stinky tiger, which actually attacked her. Moreover, Yanji showed Tangmao her wounds. Although she was already in the mature stage, Yanji was still like the little kid back then. If there was a problem that couldn't be solved, she would look for her unscrupulous father. Tangmao rubbed its little head, then took out the last holy medicine, gave it to it, and then looked around. the monarch of the dark attribute. If it weren't for his special shadow system, it would be really difficult to deal with. But since the shadow system has changed, what can a small dark knight tiger count for? CUE's rule, Black Demon Pond. Although it is said that under CUE's rule, the strength of the Dark Knight Tiger will be further enhanced, but the Shadow Army that has been promoted is not a vegetarian. The dark energy directly wrapped here, and the Dark Knight Tiger hidden under the yellow sand was also locked here. Then, it thought of taking advantage of the moment to use its claws, but suddenly found that dark body creatures appeared around it at some point? Question mark? Moreover, they are all commander level creatures? Question mark? Immediately, the Dark Knight Tiger shook its head and tail, and waved its claws to tear the strange shadow body into pieces one by one. Obviously, even if the Shadow Evil leads the army, it is still just a younger brother in front of this monarch with a higher bloodline. However, Tang Mao did not expect these Shadow Evils to be able to solve the opponent, but just let them restrict its actions, that's all. The moment she saw the fierce tiger of the Dark Knight, the tender little hand of little Yanji condensed, and the flames gathered instantly. Then, a huge pillar of fire rushed straight to the fierce tiger of the Dark Knight, as if he couldn't vent his anger unless he blasted it with his own hands. Similarly, Tang Mao also took action, combining his own body with the ice attribute of the Snow Girl, condensing an ice dragon and rushing out. When the ice dragon and the pillar of fire rushed over, under the control of Yanji, the Snow Girl and Tang Mao, they merged into one. The next moment, the destructive power of this combination of ice and fire instantly exploded with several times the power. After all, Yanji and the Snow Girl have followed Tang Mao since they were young, and this kind of fusion is a piece of cake. The moment the double energy rushed over, the shadow evils instantly dispersed. Chapter 524 Great Gift. The Dark Knight Tiger was also a little angry when he saw the shadow demons turned into a ball of black mist. It seemed as if he had been fooled. However, when he saw the ice and fire dragon charging at him, he quickly gathered the power of darkness with his claws, and then blocked the head of the charging elemental dragon with one claw. Boom. It must be said that the Dark Knight Tiger was still powerful. Generally, a monarch would have almost no chance of struggling in the face of such an attack. But he did it, and even struggled for a while? Question mark? However, after struggling for a while, the result was still the same. The impact dragon pillar condensed by the dual element broke its tiger claws in one go and directly bombarded into its body. Boom. Another burst of element exploded. Bang. The savage who was entangled with Apis suddenly felt a collapse from the spiritual world. The boulder that was originally trying to avoid the earth element condensed by Apis was hit and flew away. Apis himself did not expect that his casual attack would actually hit this guy who only knew how to dodge. Question mark? However, when he saw the black energy dissipated from Tang Mao and the others, he understood that the other party's contracted beast had died. No wonder. Immediately, Apis prepared the mind magic. Such people deserve to die. Stop fighting. Let's go. At this moment, Tang Mao suddenly shouted, and then flew over without saying anything, pulled Apis into his arms, and flew towards the territory of the feathered monsters in the distance. It's not that he didn't want to kill this bastard, but the big monster that the other party rushed over was getting closer and closer. If he wanted to kill him, it would not be a matter of a moment. After all, at the super level, although the contracted beast died, and there would be damage, it did not mean that he really had no power to fight back. Apis also knew that the other party had come to reinforce. Although he was unwilling, he still obediently returned to the contract space. After taking them back to the contract space, Tang Mao accelerated and flew towards the territory of the feathered monsters. Now even if he broke in by force, he had no choice. After all, in this Sahara demon empire, who knows how many such powerful beings there are? Although the demon system is powerful, it is not truly invincible. The other side actually has an emperor, so if there are a few supreme monarchs, he may not be able to control it. Therefore, Tang Mao decided to force his way out of this desert. Moreover, when he just solved the Dark Knight Fierce Tiger, he also got a great reward. That is, it actually exploded its spirit, and his own Zhao finally had the opportunity to advance. As long as Zhao advances, he will have 4 monarch level contract pets. Although the bloodline of the Dark Knight Fierce Tiger is not as high as that of Apis and elemental pets, it is also top notch among most demons. Moreover, its bloodline is definitely in the front row among tiger demons. Especially with the assistance of black energy, its strength can burst out with an enhancement of a small realm. If it weren't for him, Yang and Zunu's joint efforts, the Dark Knight Fierce Tiger just now might not have been killed. Of course, this is also thanks to the horror of his dark domain. Imagine, even with Tang Mao's current strength, it is not easy to solve. If others encounter him, he will cast a black magic field, then even a superclass peak mage may not be his opponent. Of course, if he encounters a light system, he can only say that he is unlucky. After all, restraint has always existed in this world. The savage watched Tang Mao and the others escape, full of unwillingness. He roared angrily, "The ends of the earth, I will definitely kill you." Unfortunately, Tang Mao didn't treat him as a dish at all, and didn't care about his yelling at all. After a few space teleports and the power of wind attributes, he has begun to rush into the feather demon territory. Dozens of feather demons in the sky here seem to be standing guard. However, when Tang Mao rushed over, he gave them a sky flame funeral. When the rain of fire suddenly fell, these feather demons had no time to defend, and crashed one by one. In fact, even if they defended, it would be useless. After all, how could Tang Mao's flames be endured by some general level demons? Chirp chirp. When the Nubian bastard monarch roared, Tang Mao had already gone deep into their midst. Then, looking at the gathered feathered monsters, Tang Mao began to draw a lightning net. As long as his lightning net is set up, these birds, I don't believe they will not die. You know, there was no such opportunity before, because as soon as he rushed over, or even before he rushed over, these stupid birds had already set up their formation. But maybe because they noticed the battle between him and the fire-winged dragon, their defenses were relaxed a lot. At this time, if he rushed over, and they came to chase him, then Tang Mao would naturally not panic. These feathered monsters are indeed very smart, but at this time, if they can still maintain the military management brain, then Tang Mao can only say that he is awesome. The dense lightning nets were almost constantly linked during Tang Mao's flight, and his speed slowed down a lot at this time, not because of the miscellaneous birds that appeared from time to time in front of him to block the way, but because he needed to wait for them to rush over in a mighty manner. If he didn't kill tens of thousands of them in one wave, Tang Mao would feel sorry for the arrangements he had made along the way. Just when the Nubian bastard monarch was about to approach the lightning net with a flock of birds, a blue-winged Asian dragon suddenly rushed over. Tang Mao really couldn't believe that there were so many Asian dragons in the Sahara Desert. After all, don't dragons like water? Why are they all running to the desert now? Of course, things are not absolute. After all, isn't the family of his little lover Irene a dragon trainer? Although the dragons trained by her family are also pseudo-dragons and Asian dragons, this also has a place for her family in the entire world. Feelings aside, based on the number of these feathered monsters and the arrangement of his own lightning net, what can he do, even if he is the supreme monarch? When they stepped into the center of the lightning net, Tang Mao not only did not continue to flee, but also leisurely described the constellations. When the lightning constellations were successfully linked and emerged, the mountains were covered with thunder. Thunderstorm. Then, Tang Mao shouted, and in an instant, this area full of mountains became a thunder domain. Destructive thunder continued to fall. The thousands of feather monsters rushing in the front, thousands of them were in the domain. At the moment they exploded, the feather monsters next to them seemed to be frightened and wanted to run, but they were touched by lightning. How could they run in this vast domain? Boom. Boom. Chapter 525 Rushing to the maze. Boom 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 in this area, almost in just a moment, there was a continuous sound of thunder and bombing. The reason why Tang Mao did not rush to leave was not because he was confident that he could get rid of these hundreds of thousands of feather monsters and the big monsters chasing him, but at the moment, when the thunder exploded, he was absorbing the residual souls and essences of the fluorescent star points here. Although it is a huge project to strengthen the stars with these residual souls now, it may not be possible to strengthen all the skills in a year and a half or even several years, but a little bit can make a lot. In this explosion, He collected thousands of residual souls, including 10 war general level essences, and 1 commander level essence. If it weren't for the blue winged dragon that took most of the bombing, the effect would definitely be better than it is now. However, he is not going to make up the knife. After all, this group of miscellaneous birds can't be killed. Moreover, although this blue-winged dragon was bombed by himself, his superclass Thunder Halberd couldn't kill the fire-winged dragon, let alone the blue-winged dragon whose breath is stronger than it. After collecting the residual soul, he turned around and continued to flee. This time, Tang Mao did not arrange any magic, but really concentrated on running wildly, because, just at that moment, he seemed to feel an extremely powerful demonic aura, but it was only for a moment, and then it suddenly dissipated. Although the distance was very far, he still felt it clearly. In fact, the feeling that this demonic power gave him was almost incomparable to that of the ancient king. At the moment of perception, Tang Mao first thought of the Emperor of Sahara. But a person who can be seriously injured by a mature Fengji who has only mutated, obviously cannot burst out a more powerful aura than the ancient king. This should be the best in the world. Moreover, perhaps this is the real Emperor of Sahara. After all, the more powerful the demon emperor is, the longer he sleeps than the time he wakes up. In this world, there are too many demon gods that have existed since the birth of creatures. The Dark King controls a plane, but he has never seen him express his desire to move in this plane. Even if it is to collect the energy here, or life, it is completely a transaction method. What he feared was obviously not the humans of this plane, let alone the ghosts like Khufu and the ancient king. What he feared was actually the demon gods who might be sleeping somewhere. Not to mention the land, which had not been fully explored and discovered. Who knew what kind of powerful existence there was in the deep sea besides a demon empire? After figuring this out, how could he dare to continue to make up for it? Continue to stay here and fight? Just showing a little bit, he was already stronger than the ancient king. Even after he turned into a demon, he might not necessarily be the opponent. Of course, the demon system was an immeasurable magic system. If he sacrificed his life and soul, he could still get stronger energy in a short time. But as long as the battle lasted, he would have to fight with his and the contracted pets' lives. However, he was alive and well, so why would he risk his life? The wind system cooperated with the space system, and he almost didn't care whether the magic energy was sufficient or whether there was any danger behind him. He just rushed all the way at full speed. There were still many feather monsters in front, but facing Kinshuo's killing state, almost blocking the way would kill them. After all, there were too few of them, and the real feather monster army was gathering behind. If they were not at the monarch level, they could hardly get close to Tang Mao. After all, during the full speed flight, Tang Mao was constantly surrounded by boiling fire rain. With the continuous support of the fire attribute magic energy, the feather monster territory soon burned completely. This was the first time for him to squander magic energy, but he had to do so. The breath just now made him panic. So in order to clear the obstacles blocking the road, he had to do this. It took him nearly 10 minutes to finally penetrate the feather monster's territory, and when he rushed out, he found that there were nearly 100 types of feather monsters in a large area of different heights. However, whether he offended or not, he almost offended them all at the moment he flew out at full speed. Fortunately, some small tribes did not come to pursue, and some tribes seemed to be attracted by the Nubian bastard monarch and its tribe coming from behind, and had no time to care about Tang Mao, who was probably rushing over suddenly. After rushing out of the continuous mountainous area, he flew for nearly half an hour before finally seeing the maze. Because of the previous battle and the rush just now, except for the summoning system, the magic energy of the other systems has been consumed by more than half, especially the wind system, space system and fire system, which almost feel dry. Apis, hurry up and lead the way. Looking at the maze in front of him, Tang Mao hurriedly summoned Apis. Because she was locked in the contract space, Apis did not notice the evil spirit just now, but when she was finally locked in the contract space, she still knew that they were being chased. In addition, she didn't want to stay here, so after being summoned, she immediately led the way. Even if he stepped into the maze, Tang Mao still had no intention of relaxing his vigilance. After all, this desert was too weird. After walking for a while, Apis suddenly frowned. "Why don't you go? Are you lost?" Tang Mao asked with a slight twitch in his mouth. "Is your perception useless?" Apis replied without hesitation. Tang Mao then realized that there seemed to be a lot of demonic energy ahead. Although the momentum was not very strong, and even in his eyes, it was almost weak, the number was indeed quite large. There should be a tribe battle between demons here. Isn't it better to go around it? Tang Mao said indifferently. In the Sahara Desert, tribe battles are almost common. It's just that I don't know what is fighting this time, but it is certain that in places like the periphery, even if there are big demons, they are at most at the commander level. Even if he doesn't have much magic power now, he has Apis, Ziohedi and the beasts of the summoning gate, so he has nothing to panic. Moreover, they just want to go out now, and they don't want to get involved in the other side's war. What's the point of stopping? But this is the road we took when we came here. If we change the direction, it will be a bit difficult. Apis said again. Then let's go. A group of low-level demons. What are you afraid of? Tang Mao waved his hand. Are you sure that you can survive the clan war safely in your current state? Apis said again. Don't you have me? I used my power forcibly before and was backfired by the contract. There is no way to fight now. Apis said helplessly. Fuck you. Tang Mao was stunned when he heard it. Is this kidding him? The reason why he rushed around like that before was because he thought that with Apis by his side, he could resist, even if he encountered trouble later. Who knew that this silly snake girl would use all her power to kill a savage? The worst thing is that she didn't kill him yet. What should I do then? Tang Mao really had no tricks. Based on his current state and the state of Yanji and Zunu, even if he cast a demon, the cost would be extremely high. Moreover, who knows if the big demon with a terrifying breath that made him feel terrified before will chase him again. So, right now, he really wanted to leave here as soon as possible. It's best for us to wait until they finish fighting, and it's safe here. We can recover slowly. Apis said again. Tang Mao felt a headache. If he didn't feel the danger, would he run so hard? This smart girl, why is she suddenly stupid now? No, if the other party chases us out, we are done. Tang Mao continued. I don't feel any demonic energy approaching, and if the other party really wants to chase us out, it's not too late for us to run. Or, do you have a way to deal with the demon group in the tribe battle in front of the other party? Or can you safely pass through their battlefield? Apis said this feebly. She didn't know when this daring guy became so cowardly. They have already reached the maze, the periphery of the Sahara. What's there to panic? The most important thing is that they didn't go deep at all, and if Tang Mao didn't take action without listening to advice and offended the Sahara Demon Empire, would they be so embarrassed? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.